In Surabaya, there is also the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences at Hang Tuah University Surabaya, which was established at the same time as the establishment of Hang Tuah University, namely on May 12, 1987. As the Center of Education and Development of Social Science and Technology, the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences as a center for development of social and political sciences based on marine science in realizing maritime human resources that are globally competitive. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya has a mission organizing professional education and teaching in the field of social and political sciences based on marine science and technology, improving analytical skills through research in the field of social and political sciences that is creative, innovative, and educational, organizing community service, increase cooperation with various domestic and foreign institutions. The Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Hang Tuah University Surabaya has 3 levels of education, namely Bachelor of Public Administration with Accreditation A and Business Administration with Accreditation B, Master of Public Administration with Accreditation B, and Doctor of Public Administration. In this case, the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Hang Tuah University Surabaya prepares the best graduates who are included in the scope of state needs according to the field of graduation. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya has facilities including air-conditioned classroom, faculty and university libraries, entrepreneurship laboratory, service, Public Policy and Management Laboratory, meeting room, multimedia room, and corner music studio. There are many achievements that have been achieved both at the regional, national, and international levels, including National Student Exchange at UNTAC Surabaya and Dr. Sutomo University Surabaya, International Exchange Students at the Lyceum of the Philippine University. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya prepares graduates who have comprehensive expertise in scientific insight into public administration, analysis and research, skill management, and as well as a share in democracy and humanity. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya also improves the quality of the implementation of the three dharma of higher education by prioritizing the basic scientific pattern of marine science and technology. Many alumni work with partners. Currently, the partner of FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya.
Menurut saya, kualitas pendidikan di FISIP sudah sangat baik, didukung oleh tenaga pendidik yang berpengalaman, kompeten, dan profesional di bidangnya. Tak hanya itu, Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya juga memiliki lingkungan dan fasilitas yang sangat mendukung dalam proses perkuliahan. perkuliahan.
Harapan saya setelah lulus kuliah, sesuai dengan jurusan saya yaitu bisnis, saat ini saya sedang mengembangkan bisnis di bidang properti dan juga body care, yaitu transit. Harapan saya ke depannya, usaha saya dapat lancar dan juga dapat membuka lapangan pekerjaan bagi banyak orang.
Visip Universitas Hang Tuah adalah kampus terbaik dan bisa membantu mahasiswa untuk mewujudkan impian. Visip Universitas Hang Tuah juga banyak membimbing, khususnya bagi mahasiswa yang kuliah sambil bekerja sambil melaksanakan penjelasan. Harapan saya setelah lulus dari Visip Universitas Hang Tuah, saya mampu mengimplementasikan ilmu yang saya dapat di kampus di dalam kehidupan bermasyarakat dan juga mendukung dalam kedinasan saya sebagai prajurit Korps Marinir TNI Angkatan Laut.
Visip Hang Tuah University Surabaya will continue to develop into an educational institution with a national and international reputation in the field of public administration. Cooperation continues to be built to develop science and market share of graduates. There are so many solutions prepared for students. So, are you ready to become a new generation and be able to contribute in the real time? Let's join Visip Hang Tuah University Surabaya. Visip Hang Tuah Gateway to Global Competition. Surabaya merupakan kota metropolitan terbesar di Provinsi Jawa Timur. Dan tahukah Anda, di Surabaya juga ada Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik di Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya yang berdiri bersamaan dengan berdirinya Universitas Hang Tuah, yaitu pada tanggal 12 Mei tahun 1987. Sebagai pusat pengembangan ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik berbasis ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, dan seni kelautan dalam mewujudkan sumber daya manusia kemaritiman yang kompetitif secara global. Dalam rangka mencapai visi tersebut, Visip Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya mempunyai visi yang pertama, menyelenggarakan pendidikan dan pengajaran yang profesional di bidang ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik berbasis ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi kelautan. Kedua, meningkatkan kemampuan analisis melalui penelitian di bidang ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik yang kreatif, inovatif, dan edukatif. Ketiga, menyelenggarakan pengabdian ke masyarakat. Dan keempat, meningkatkan kerjasama dengan berbagai institusi dalam dan luar negeri. Visip Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya memiliki 3 jenjang pendidikan, yaitu S1 Administrasi Publik dengan akreditasi A dan Administrasi Bisnis dengan akreditasi B. S2 yaitu Magister Administrasi Publik dengan akreditasi B serta S3 Administrasi Publik. Dalam hal ini, Visip Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya menyiapkan lulusan terbaik yang masuk dalam lingkup kebutuhan negara sesuai dengan bidang kelulusan. Untuk menunjang pembelajaran pada Visip Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya memiliki berbagai fasilitas, di antaranya ruangan kelas ber-AC, perpustakaan fakultas dan universitas, laboratorium kewirausahaan, layanan akademik, laboratorium manajemen dan kebijakan publik, ruang rapat, ruang multimedia, dan corner musik studio. Berbicara tentang prestasi, tentu banyak yang telah diraih baik dalam level regional, nasional, dan internasional. Di antaranya pertukaran pelajar nasional di Untan Surabaya dan juga di Universitas Dr. Sutomo Surabaya. Kemudian pertukaran pelajar internasional di Lyceum of the Philippine University. FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya mempersiapkan lulusan yang memiliki keahlian yang komprehensif dalam penguasaan keilmuan administrasi publik, analisis dan penelitian, manajemen skill, serta andil dalam demokrasi dan kemanusiaan. Selain melakukan kegiatan dan pengajaran, FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah juga meningkatkan mutu penyelenggaraan Tridharma perguruan tinggi dengan mengutamakan pola ilmiah iptek kelautan sebagai basis pengembangan kerjasama kemitraan.
Menurut saya, kualitas pendidikan di FISIP sudah sangat baik didukung oleh tenaga pendidik yang berpengalaman, kompeten, dan profesional di bidangnya. Tak hanya itu, Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya juga memiliki lingkungan dan fasilitas yang sangat mendukung dalam proses perkuliahan.
Harapan saya setelah lulus kuliah, sesuai dengan jurusan saya yaitu bisnis, saat ini saya sedang mengembangkan bisnis di bidang properti dan juga yaitu transaksi. Harapan saya ke depannya, usaha saya dapat lancar dan juga dapat membuka lapangan pekerjaan bagi banyak orang.
FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah adalah kampus terbaik dan bisa membantu mahasiswa untuk mewujudkan impian. FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah juga banyak membimbing, khususnya bagi mahasiswa yang kuliah sambil bekerja sambil melaksanakan kedinasan. Harapan saya setelah lulus dari FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah, saya mampu mengimplementasikan ilmu yang saya dapat di kampus di dalam kehidupan bermasyarakat dan juga mendukung dalam kedinasan saya sebagai prajurit Korps Marinir TNI Angkatan Laut.
FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah akan terus berkembang menjadi lembaga pendidikan yang bereputasi nasional maupun internasional di dalam bidang administrasi publik. Kerjasama pun terus dibangun guna pengembangan keilmuan dan pangsa pasar lulusan. Banyak sekali beasiswa yang telah disiapkan untuk mahasiswa. Siapkah kamu menjadi generasi baru dan dapat berkontribusi secara nyata? Mari bergabung dengan FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya. FISIP Hang Tuah Gateway to Global Competition.
Cek. Masuk.
Surabaya merupakan kota metropolitan terbesar di Provinsi Jawa Timur. Dan tahukah Anda, di Surabaya juga ada Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik di Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya yang berdiri bersamaan dengan berdirinya Universitas Hang Tuah, yaitu pada tanggal 12 Mei tahun 1987. sebagai pusat pengembangan ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik berbasis ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, dan seni kelautan dalam mewujudkan sumber daya manusia kemaritiman yang kompetitif secara global. Dalam rangka mencapai visi tersebut, FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya mempunyai visi yang pertama, menyelenggarakan pendidikan dan pengajaran yang profesional di bidang ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik berbasis ilmu pengetahuan dan teknologi kelautan. Kedua, meningkatkan kemampuan analisis melalui penelitian di bidang ilmu sosial dan ilmu politik yang kreatif, inovatif, dan edukatif. Ketiga, menyelenggarakan pengabdian ke masyarakat. Dan keempat, meningkatkan kerjasama dengan berbagai institusi dalam dan luar negeri. FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya memiliki 3 jenjang pendidikan, yaitu S1 Administrasi Publik dengan akreditasi A, dan Administrasi Bisnis dengan akreditasi B. S2 yaitu Magister Administrasi Publik dengan akreditasi B, serta S3 Administrasi Publik. Dalam hal ini, FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya menyiapkan lulusan terbaik yang masuk dalam lingkup kebutuhan negara sesuai dengan bidang kelulusan. Untuk menunjang pembelajaran pada FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya memiliki berbagai fasilitas, di antaranya ruangan kelas ber-AC, perpustakaan fakultas dan universitas, laboratorium kewirausahaan, layanan akademik, laboratorium manajemen dan kebijakan publik, ruang rapat, ruang multimedia, dan corner musik studio. Berbicara tentang prestasi, tentu banyak yang telah diraih baik dalam level regional, nasional, dan internasional. Di antaranya pertukaran pelajar nasional di Untan Surabaya dan juga di Universitas Dr. Sutomo Surabaya. Kemudian pertukaran pelajar internasional di Lyceum of the Philippine University. FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya mempersiapkan lulusan yang memiliki keahlian yang komprehensif dalam penguasaan keilmuan administrasi publik, analisis dan penelitian, manajemen skill, serta andil dalam demokrasi dan kemanusiaan. Selain melakukan kegiatan dan pengajaran, FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah juga meningkatkan mutu penyelenggaraan Tridharma perguruan tinggi dengan mengutamakan pola ilmiah pokok iptek kelautan sebagai basis pengembangan kerjasama kemitraan.
Menurut saya, kualitas pendidikan di FISIP sudah sangat baik, didukung oleh tenaga pendidik yang berpengalaman, kompeten, dan profesional di bidangnya. Tak hanya itu, Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya juga memiliki lingkungan dan fasilitas yang sangat mendukung dalam proses perkuliahan.
Harapan saya setelah lulus kuliah, sesuai dengan jurusan saya yaitu bisnis, saat ini saya sedang mengembangkan bisnis di bidang properti dan juga body care, yaitu transit. Harapan saya ke depannya, usaha saya dapat lancar dan juga dapat membuka lapangan pekerjaan bagi banyak orang.
FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah adalah kampus terbaik bisa membantu mahasiswa untuk mewujudkan impian. Visi Universitas Hang Tuah juga banyak membimbing, khususnya bagi mahasiswa yang kuliah sambil bekerja sambil melaksanakan kedinasan. Harapan saya setelah lulus dari Visi Universitas Hang Tuah, saya mampu mengimplementasikan ilmu yang saya dapat di kampus di dalam kehidupan bermasyarakat dan juga mendukung dalam kedinasan saya sebagai prajurit Korps Marinir TNI Angkatan Darat.
FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah akan terus berkembang menjadi lembaga pendidikan yang bereputasi nasional maupun internasional di dalam bidang administrasi publik. Kerjasama pun terus dibangun guna pengembangan keilmuan dan pangsa pasar lulusan. Banyak sekali beasiswa yang telah disiapkan untuk mahasiswa. Siapkah kamu menjadi generasi baru dan dapat berkontribusi secara nyata? Mari bergabung dengan FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya. FISIP Hang Tuah Gateway to Global Competition. Surabaya merupakan kota metropolitan terbesar di Provinsi Jawa Timur. Dan tahukah Anda, di Surabaya juga Surabaya is the largest metropolitan city in the province of East Java. And did you know, in Surabaya, there is also the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences at Hang Tuah University Surabaya, which was established at the same time as the establishment of Hang Tuah University.
Morning,
On May
the
12,
Honorable
1987.
Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SE MPRH, from the Indonesian Maritime
As the Center of Education and Development of Social Science and Technology, the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences as a Center for Development of Social and Political Sciences based on maritime science in realizing maritime human resources that are globally competitive. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya has a mission organizing professional education and teaching in the field of social and political sciences based on maritime science and
Dean of Faculty of Social and Politics Science, academic members of Faculties of Social and Politics Science, the student, and all of the participants.
Selamat pagi Bapak Rektor, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Siap cek sound Pak Bapak Rektor.
Iya, ini tadi punya saya mute kok masih keluar.
Ya, ya, enggak, tadi sempat masuk ini sementara sambil menunggu narasumber yang lain siapa Pak Rektor siap.
Ya,
tapi bagus suaranya bagus Bapak.
Siap, terima kasih.
Siap Bapak Rektor.
One, two, three. One, two, three.
Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu sekalian. Yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Insinyur Supartono Laksamana Muda Purnawirawan, Rektor Universitas Hang Tuah.
Selamat pagi.
Salam sehat, Profesor. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kami siap bergabung. Mohon tes suara Pak.
Suara bagus. Selamat pagi Pak Tatit.
Siap, selamat pagi
Salam.
mentor.
Sampai
Alhamdulillah.
jumpa lagi. Suara bagus, suara bagus.
Terima kasih, Pak. Kami standby, Pak.
Randu.
Mohon izin Bapak Rektor, apakah sudah bisa dimulai?
Loh, kalau jam 9 ya jam 9. Masih kurang 2 menit, ini ya jam 9.
Baik, Bapak.
Ya, kalau udah waktunya, monggo silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Almira Aurelia Dianti. I am Devira Triska Aprilia Putri. We are your hosts today. First of all, let us pray and praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because of His bless and mercy, we can come together without any obstacle here with healthy condition in the international webinar entitled Maritime Development Challenge and Opportunity, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, University of Hang Tuah. Second, let us greet and pray to our beloved Prophet Muhammad SAW, who had brought us to the path of light and left the darkness in this life. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to the Honorable Mr. Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono, MM CIQAR, as Rector of Hang Tuah University. The Honorable Mr. Edi Suhardono, SA, MAP CIQNR, as Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. The Honorable Rear Admiral Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SA, MTR, from the Indonesian Maritime Security Agency. The Honorable Professor Dr. Moheriono, MSE, from University of Hang Tuah. The Honorable Professor Peter G. Mambi, from University of Queensland, Australia. The Honorable Amonjek Inkeu, BBA, IBMA, from Thailand. The Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad from Malaysia. Academic members of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, the students, and all of the participants. Ladies and gentlemen, before we come to the main session, may I invite everyone to invoke the Almighty. Let us start this by praying first, so the event that we will hold on this day will run well without any obstacle at all. Pray based on individual belief begins. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on this nice occasion, let me deliver the structure of the event today as follows. First is opening, second is singing Indonesian national anthem, third is opening remarks from Rector University of Hang Tuah, Mr. Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono, MMCIQAR. Fourth is presentation of certificate by Dean, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences for Rector as keynote speaker and the speakers. Fifth is presentation from by the 5 speakers and guide by a moderator. Sixth is question and answer session, guide by a moderator. And the last is closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen, let's open this event by saying Basmalah. The next agenda is singing Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya.
tahu kalau sakit kan gitu. Kalau tiba volumenya tinggi juga.
Now, we invite Mr. Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono, MM CIQAR, to give opening remarks. To Mr. Supartono, time and place are yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Good
wabarakatuh.
morning, the Honorable Rear Admiral Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SAMTR Han, from the Indonesian Marine Security Agency. Professor Dr. Muhirono, MSc from University of Hang Tuah. Professor Peter J. Mambi from University of Queensland, Australia. Amode Ika BBA, BMA from Thailand. Asok Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad from Malaysia. Dean of Faculties of Social and Political Science, academic member of Faculties of Science and Political Science, the student, all of the participants. In this occasion, I would like to deliver the speech to welcome all of you in this international webinar. Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world that has a potential to be the world marine access. The vision of world maritime access is aimed to take Indonesia as independent, strong, prosperous, and hook maritime country by returning Indonesia's greatest identity. Moreover, the mission cover the independence of maritime sector from infrastructure, politics, social culture, law, security, and economic, the enforcement of Indonesian sea territorial sovereignty, the revitalization of marine economic sector, development of maritime connectivity, rehabilitation of environmental damage and biodiversity conservation, as well as the enhancement of quality and quantity in marine human resources. The program aimed at releasing the world maritime access in Indonesia. Introducing as the world maritime access, the government provided 5 priority programs for maritime policies in Indonesia. The first pillar is rebuilding maritime culture. The second pillar is conserving and managing maritime resources with the focus on developing sea resources, sovereignty, so the development of fisheries industry and fishermen. The third pillar is promoting the development of maritime infrastructure and connectivity by building sea tool, the sport, logistic, shipping industry, and maritime tourism. The fourth pillar is the marine diplomatic that invites all participants to cooperation the marine sector. Finally, the 5th pillar is developing maritime defense and security strength. The dynamic of uncertain global and national strategic environment will contrast the access in the marine development policy. The issues related to marine such as global warming, energy crisis, food crisis, and traditional crime become challenger in the development of marine sector. To the Honorable President, in this occasion, I welcome all of you in this international webinar held by Faculty of Political and Social Science, University of Hang Tuah, as the academic participant from in development science and maritime knowledge for the successful this program. Therefore, it's requiring government collaboration, participation, and education. Honorable, I would also thank the speaker who are willing to give the speech and share knowledge with all of us. I also dedicated by careful, appreciated to the committee for preparing this webinar. Hopeful there are useful discussion or sharing session from the people in the various countries. In Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, International Webinar, Maritime Development, Challenger and Opportunities, we start. This is my welcome speech. I hope this event will be successful and there are useful results for the development of science and the suggestions for stakeholders in the maritime development. Have a nice, full international webinar. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you to Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono, MM, CIQAR, for the opening remarks. The next one is presentation of certificate by Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences for Rector as keynote speaker and the speakers. To Mr. Edi Suhardono, time and place are yours.
Thank you, MC. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable all speakers, I am Edi Suhardono, Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences. As my appreciate, I would like to give certificate for all the speakers, of course, all the participants. Please share screen the certificate. The first for among the back slide. Yeah, to among the NK PPA, IBMA. Thank you for your time and your presentation. Then the next. Associate Prof. Dr. Muhammad Syaki Ahmad from University Utara Malaysia. Thank you for your coming. Next. Professor Dr. Moharyono from UHT Indonesia. Thank you, Prof. Moharyono. Next. And then my colleague from Bakamla RI, Rear Admiral of the Navy, Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SMT Erhan.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. This is wonderful certificate I received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next, Professor Peter Cimambi from Queensland University. Thank you for your time and presentation. Okay. And then, of course, for our rector, Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono, MM, Ciagu IR. Mohon diterima Bapak Rektor.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Demikian, terima kasih. Thank you for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, may you please open your camera and give the best smile, please. Okay, for the first page, for the operator, can you documentation? 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. The third. 1, 2, 3. The next one. 1, 2, 3. And the last. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for the operator. And thank you to Mr. Edi Suhardono, SAMAP, CIQNR. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to our main agenda, the webinar season. All presentation and discussion will be moderated by our moderator, Mrs. Febrina Hambala. To Mrs. Febrina Hambala, time and place are yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Devira and Miss Almira. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Febrina Hambala, and I am today will be your host. Will be the moderator for this discussion, this international webinar held by Faculty of Political.
Suaranya masih
MC no sound.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Please excuse
Good morning.
the technical error. I would like to present myself. My name is Febrina Hambala, and today I will be your moderator for today's international webinar held by Faculty of Social and Political Sciences by University of Hang Tuah, Surabaya, Indonesia. Okay, for the first session, we will have 3 distinguished speakers. I would like to welcome the first speaker is the Rear Admiral Mr. Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SAMTR, from the Indonesian Maritime Security Agency. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Tatit.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, good morning.
Good to see you, moderator.
Okay, thank you. And the second speaker is Mr. Professor Peter J. Mambi. Hello, Mr.
Hello.
Mambi.
Yes.
So how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nice to have you here. And the third speaker in our first session is from Thailand, Mr. Amondech Inkau, BBA, IBMA. Mr. Inkau?
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
I'm very glad to be here today. Thank you.
Okay. We are so glad to have you guys here to share the knowledge that you guys have today. And well, we will start the first session with the presentation from Mr. Tatit Eko Wicaksono. But first of all, I would like to give a brief introduction for Mr. Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SAMTR. He is currently the Rear Admiral of Indonesia. The Deputy of Policy and Strategy of Indonesian Coast Guard. Okay, he first started his career in 1988, and now he got to his position, and his last assignment, he has done so many honorable duties as the Chief of International Cooperation Center of Indonesian Armed Force. Also in 2020, he is the expert staff for humanitarian assistance of Indonesian Armed Force. Okay, please welcome Mr. Tatit Eko Wicaksono, SAMTR, and please, we give you the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator. Let me share my presentation. Okay, you all can see clearly, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning, distinguished professor, dean, and lecturers, dear college, and all seminar participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Chief of Bakamla, Vice Admiral Dr. An Kurnia, I would like to thank to Rear Admiral Retired Professor Dr. Supartono, Director of Hang Tuah University, for giving time for Bakamla and this respectful forum. Especially for me, it is great honor and a good opportunity being able to join in this seminar. Now I continue my presentation. To start my presentation, I would like to describe a little bit strategic value of Indonesia. We all know that Indonesia is a unique because it is an archipelagic state which border 10 neighboring countries and has several choke points and become important because 40% of world trade passes through the Strait of Malacca every year, and 1/3 of the world sea trade passes through the South China Sea. Understanding the importance of Indonesian position, the government has a vision to develop maritime security in Indonesian waters. So Bakamla was formed as a leading institution in maritime security to optimize and enhance law enforcement at sea according to Government Regulation number 13, 2022, which is issued on March 11. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia still has challenges to counter maritime threats, and from all types of threats, contraband, smuggling, including transnational organized crime, especially drug, and also IUU fishing, contributes to 70% of maritime problems for Indonesia. We also see that at the macro level, there have been an increase of the illegal activities for the least 3 years. This happened probably because of the pandemic of COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that maritime threats can take the form of military and non-military threats. Faced with Indonesia national interest require maritime domain awareness. This national interest can be realized if the unitary state of Republic of Indonesia still exists, as sustainable development in a safe and peaceful world environment. Indonesia's national interests are also supported by all defense capabilities, both military and non-military, within the basic framework of Indonesia visions as a world maritime fulcrum that requires safe sea condition from various maritime threats. Ladies and gentlemen, as the largest archipelagic state in the world, Indonesia has huge amounts of maritime potential resources. Indonesia maritime potential resources come from various sectors such as oil and gas, transportation, fisheries, coral reef, mangrove, biotech, also tourism and seagrass. The value of Indonesia maritime potential resources is reaching almost 122 billion US dollar. It was 93% of national gross income in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, these are maritime threats in Bakamla broad perspective. The threat could be non-military and military, also hybrid. The most likely threat is illegal fishing. Then we also face traditional crime as the most dangerous threat at sea. Also, there are several potential and factual threats such as a border dispute, armed robbery, maritime incident, cyber crimes, oil spill, maritime terrorism, and the least likely is invasion. Indonesia has a big problem, ladies and gentlemen, related to the drug trafficking. We can see from the data that there has been an increase in arrests for drug trafficking over the last 4 years. Although the total weight is lower, but the total capture is increasing. From the map, it can be seen that the coastline of is a favorite access for drugs to enter to Indonesia. Indonesia National Board of Narcotic, or we call it BNN, said that 80 to 90% of drug trafficking to Indonesia come from the sea. In 2021, Bakamla detained more than 400 kilos of crystal methamphetamine in Seribu Island of the North Jakarta waters. Still related to transnational threat, asylum seekers are another mode of threat. The violator organized transportation for them to go to destination country, such as Australia. And of course, they have to pass Indonesia water. For the last 2 years, more than 500 asylum seekers from Rohingya cases stranded on coast of Indonesia. Based on data from the Ministry of Law and Human Rights, in the middle 2021, there were more than 13,000 people with refugee status. However, there are more than 3,000 asylum seekers from 20 countries have not been processed to be refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, IUU fishing is the second largest type of maritime threats that occurs in Indonesia. In general, this occurs in fishery management area, or we call it BPP 711 and the North Natuna Sea, and also FMA 572 in the Malacca Strait. Regarding IUU fishing, Indonesia and Malaysia, also the Philippines, have established the cooperation to solve the problems, and we are getting confidence to take any step to deter IUU fishing. Another issue that's still related to IUU fishing is labor. Another important issue is oil spill, ladies and gentlemen. This problem most often occurs in the waters of Bintan, which is directly side by side with international shipping lanes of Singapore Strait. The frequent anomaly behavior ships in the water east of Bintan seems to be correlated with the frequent occurrence of oil spills on the coast of Bintan Island. We are having a difficulty actually to capture these ships disposing of waste, but now we are supported by National Space Agency and we are designing a system to catch the violators. Ladies and gentlemen, as an archipelagic nation, we have obligation to provide safety passage through the territorial water for users, but the users also have obligation to comply with the coastal state regulation. We always surveil and monitor ships entering or leaving Indonesia territory through the Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and South China Sea. The problems are many vessels behavior anomaly. Based on data from January to July 2022, there are at least 164 vessels that behavior anomaly. Anomaly behavior are like circling around, turn off its eyes, or we call it dark vessel, and drifting mostly occur in a lanes of passage. Based on report of patrol vessel, they always said why they do that because of adjustment of arrival or because of weather condition and technical failure. In the framework of law enforcement, we should presume that they were going to do an illegal activity such as disposal waste and conduct illegal transshipment, which can cause marine pollution and disturbing shipping lanes. Ladies and gentlemen, when we are talking about law enforcement in Indonesia, there are a number of authorized institutions. For every maritime issue, there are a number of institutions that have the authority to take action. Regulation and law in Indonesia also regulate the range of legal action or operational area, from 6 institutions that have patrol asset, such as Navy, Bakamla or Indonesia Maritime Security Agency, and KKP or Fisheries Minister, Port Authority, in Indonesia we call it KPLP, Customs, and Police Marine. These various maritime security threats will hinder maritime development efforts, which is manifestations of empowering opportunities. So it is very important to secure maritime environment from those threats. Law enforcement agencies have to face and to handle or to overcome the maritime threats. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform that Bakamla has tasks, function, and authorities which are stated in Indonesia National Law number 34, 2014. Bakamla task is conducting law enforcement patrol in Indonesia water. Bakamla has several functions. They are formulate national policy of security, implement early warning, carry out safeguard and prosecution of violation at sea, energize and monitor law enforcement at sea by agencies, and also support any search and rescue operation. Bakamla has also authority to conduct hot pursuit, vessel inspection and prosecution, and also integrate maritime data and information system. Indonesian's law enforcement framework is essentially the same as others country, starting from observation, using sensors from ships and coast surveillance. Then the collected data is processed by the C2 center from relevant agencies. Then the result of the analysis are disseminated and become important inputs for decision making, which are followed by patrol boats that take action or re-observation. We call it, this mode refers to OODA loop, or observe, orient, decide, and act loop. Ladies and gentlemen, building on maritime domain awareness is very dependent on how to manage every information regarding any threat obtained through various sensors from internal or external resources, collect and store the data, correlate and analyze data with various approaches to get the best answer that are useful for decision making and action. Maritime domain awareness can be understood not only as awareness of the situation, but also how to involve intelligence activity in maritime environment by providing system to support them. Ladies and gentlemen, one of Bakamla function to conduct early warning system in Indonesia waters. So Bakamla established Indonesia Maritime Information Center on July 22nd, 2020. Then we call it IMIC. IMIC will be function as an integrator of maritime information system. IMIC will integrate vessel traffic system from Ministry of Transportation and also national single window from Indonesian Custom and vessel monitoring system from Ministry of Fisheries and some other information system from other stakeholders. IMIC is expected to produce an important maritime security situation picture for maritime users. In the future, Indonesia Maritime Information Center will also continue to develop its capabilities by increasing cooperation with various maritime information institutions in the world, such as IFC in Singapore, RECAP, and other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me conclude my presentation. Indonesia as an archipelagic country has opportunity and threats. Opportunities must be exploited and empowered, while threat must be faced and minimized. Everything is done using existing resources, so a strategic approach is needed. Bakamla has important duties, function, and authorities in maintaining security and safety so that maritime development can take place smoothly. In order to realize maritime security, Bakamla plans to develop core ideas that are able to build maritime domain awareness to answer maritime security challenges. That's all my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Okay,
Back to moderator, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tatit, for the presentation. It was such an interesting facts, information that you just shared with us. And for the next presentation will be from our distinguished speaker, Mr. Professor Peter J. Mambi. I would like to give a brief introduction to Mr. Mambi. He has done so many research on ecosystem resilience, impacts of climate coral reef fisheries, and marine spatial planning to capture ecosystem services. Okay, Mr. Mambi undertook a PhD at the University of Sheffield, United Kingdom, and followed by an NERC postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Newcastle. And this was followed by a Royal Society fellowship at the University of Exeter, United Kingdom. And he moved to Brisbane to take up a prestigious ARC laureate fellowship in 2010. And he is currently a professor today at the University of Queensland School of Biological Sciences. Now, without further ado, please welcome Mr. Mambi.
Thank you very much. I will go to my presentation. It's a real pleasure to be here today. Okay. Can you see that? Does it come through okay?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet, Mr.
Okay.
Mambi. We cannot see the slides.
Here we go.
Okay, it started to show up.
Okay. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Good. I wish I could. Hold on. This isn't working. All right. Now, you can see that now, I hope?
We can see your email here.
Oh, God.
Sorry, I think it's different.
Aye. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Can you see that on presenter view?
Yes, we can see your
that?
slide here. Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is clear.
Okay, I'm sorry about the confusion there. So I would like to talk a bit about the challenges facing coral reef biodiversity as Indonesia continues to develop, and the need for marine spatial planning that considers these things. Now, if I switch slide, can you see this slide, a new slide now?
Yes, we can see the corals.
Okay, great, thank you. And so, the background to this is that we're increasingly concerned about problems like coral bleaching. This is a reef that is bleaching. The last major bleaching that happened in Indonesia was, I believe, in 2010. But this has become a global phenomenon in the last 30 years or so. And when you have periods of warm temperature, when we have these heat waves, corals will suffer. Occasionally they will recover if the temperature declines, but sometimes there will be large areas of dead coral. And so this is one of the major concerns that is affecting reefs globally. And in addition to that, there are, of course, local problems. This is a reef that's suffering a lot of sediment coming out from rivers. This happens to be a video of some experimental work we're doing measuring the sediment, but you can see that there aren't many corals living on this reef, and the sediment here is just preventing new corals from growing on the reef successfully. So there are these global problems and these local problems. And when we consider those, what we're seeing increasingly is reefs moving from that sort of beautiful reef in the left-hand side towards these more often seaweed-dominated or mud-dominated reefs we're seeing on the bottom here. And this is a concern because it affects a lot of people and a lot of reasons. And what it's doing is it's shifting the balance of processes that build coral reefs. So the processes that construct these ecosystems are weakening because there's less coral and the coral is growing more slowly. Equally, the processes that naturally erode a reef are strengthening. So as the sea becomes more acidic, we tend to see that the rates at which coral erodes away are increasing. And you could imagine, for example, that this coral has been eroded away at its base, and the next storm that comes through will very easily knock that coral over and reduce the habitat. So why does this matter? Well, we can sort of compare what reefs look like on the left versus the right. On the left, you have a reef with a complex habitat. It provides lots of hiding places for fish and other organisms. But on the right is a reef that's eroded away, and you can see that it's flat and featureless, and you can see that there's relatively few corals there. And so if we are unable to keep corals being quite healthy, one can ask, what are the consequences of that for people? And one of the issues is coastal protection, in that corals provide a natural form of breakwater for waves as they're coming in from storms and reaching the beaches. And so as we lose the ability of corals to grow, they're less likely to keep up with sea level rise. And as a result, there will be more wave energy moving into the lagoon up to the beaches, often eroding that sand that we take advantage of for building materials or for tourism and so on. Another issue is fisheries productivity. And if we look at a complex coral reef habitat, it has a lot of hiding places, and those hiding places provide shelter for small fish and allow the food web to function properly. And we often explore what are the consequences of that reef complexity being lost. And so as you see it being destroyed, then it provides much poorer habitat for reef fish. And if we were to ask the question, how much can you sustainably harvest of these fish? If a reef becomes relatively flat, it reduces the amount of fish you can catch by at least threefold. So it makes it even harder for people to maintain their livelihoods if the reefs are degraded. So with this in mind, what sorts of things can we do about this? And to keep in mind when we're developing plans to improve the benefits of the coastal environment for people, we have to sort of weigh up some of those solutions with how is the ecosystem faring. And so an important thing is trying to maintain habitat quality, providing that habitat that fish need and that it's needed to help provide coastal protection. And we can start making some improvements in how to do this by understanding how the ecosystem works. And so we have models of how the whole ecosystem fits together and how it is impacted by different sorts of problem, whether it's pollution, whether it's climate change, whether it's storms, and so forth. And this is some work we try to link in a lot of empirical information. This is an example of how the knowledge of the level of sediment in the water affects the ability for corals to reproduce. And although we can never predict the future, there's only ever going to be one future. But what we can do is understand how different interventions might give us better feasible futures. So what we would do with these models is that we might run the future of a coral reef that is a feasible future. So this might be an example, and you can see the reef recovers, and it's then impacted by different things. These might be coral bleaching events, they might be storms. And then we can rerun this trajectory, but this time we're adding some management benefit. So we might be, say, improving the pollution state. We might be putting in sewage control measures. We might be reducing the amount of sediment running off farmland into the rivers. And then we rerun exactly the same scenario with that difference in human intervention. And that tells us what the potential management benefit would be given that future scenario. But because we don't know what the future really holds, we do this multiple times for different sorts of futures. And that can tell us how different interventions are likely to benefit us in future. And this is something that a PhD student of mine, Abdi Prianto from Marine Spatial Planning, did this work. And he has summarized a lot of these model results in a statistical framework. The details of this aren't that important. But what it allows you to do is look at different scenarios. So for example, if we're plotting on the x-axis here, different interventions. So F is that we might be trying to manage the fishing. N is that we're dealing with the nutrient problems. C is that we're dealing with crown of thorn starfish outbreaks that eat corals. And the y-axis is how much the coral will improve over a period of time. And this was run for regions of Indonesia. And what we see from this is that if you're just improving fishing, in some of these places, it will give you a small benefit. And you might find, however, that trying to deal with the nutrient problems and the sediment problems gives you a better value, whereas crown of thorn starfish control might not be so beneficial. But then as you combine different interventions, you find that some aren't very effective. So if you were to intervene on fishing and nutrients, you're not really going to do a lot better than just nutrients alone. And where you can get really good outcomes is when you're dealing with the right stressors. So in this case, if you're going to deal with two stressors, dealing with nutrients and crown of thorn starfish is the best strategy. The reason for that is that nutrients are a problem for, if you like, young baby corals. Starfish are a problem for adult corals. So by dealing with both of these things, there's no overlap. They complement each other. But another thing we have to bear in mind is we need to try to rebuild fisheries and achieve good biodiversity protection. And, you know, we need to do things like consider how connected these fish populations are. And these are surgeonfish. This is in an afternoon, and they're having a spawning party. They're reproducing en masse. So the males are fertilizing the eggs that are being released by the females. And those fertilized eggs form larvae, and they will drift on the ocean currents for weeks looking for a new reef. And if we have information about this, we can revisit how we might design core zones or MPAs, marine protected areas, to help rebuild fisheries. And a key consideration here is also knowing how big the reserve needs to be. We now have pretty good information that if you look at the size of the home range of fish, that bigger fish, of course, need a bigger home range. And this can help us design marine reserves to help rebuild fisheries. And so I'm just going to give you an example of how this might work. And we've got three different outcomes. So the question we're asking here is, if we were to implement a policy of 30% of protection of coastal habitat, 20%, which is more aligned with Indonesia's current policies, or 10%, which is the UN Aichi target, what would the benefit be for a variety of reef fish species in terms of an overfished fishery? And a negative here in pink is that there is a loss to the fishery. That's obviously not desirable. A green outcome is that the fishery achieves what's called pretty good yield, which means that it's very close to its maximum sustainable yield, which would be the best place to have a fishery to be productive. And the yellow, which is a plus, means the fishery is improving. People are catching more over time as a result of that intervention. And if we've got heavily fished coral reef systems, as is the case in Indonesia, this is what we find. If you had 10% area protected, then what that pie chart shows is of 2 million scenarios of different reef or different fish in general, what proportion of those fisheries would benefit versus lose? And it tells us that under 10%, about 5 to 10% of fish species would probably do worse, or rather the fishery for those species would do worse if you had an MPA there, compared to having no MPA. And this is usually for species that we don't currently fish. There are species that don't release their larvae very far, and they tend to be very small species, so we don't worry too much about these. But it tells us that the majority of species, about 80% of them, would be showing an improvement in catch. So people fishing this system would be faring better, and a small proportion would actually be able to be managed at a high level. But as you increase the area under protection up to 30%, we see that more and more fisheries become well managed, but the number of fish species that do not benefit does not change. So the pink area remains the same, and those are fish that generally we wouldn't be fishing for, so we're not too concerned. So the message here is, if you can achieve up to 30% protection as part of a marine spatial plan, that has a very strong benefit to rebuilding coastal fisheries. Okay, and there's materials available if people want to read further about this at this website. Another issue is about how big should those reserves be, and we've developed tools that allow you to estimate how many species would be protected depending on the size of the reserve that you have. And that's a very practical thing that people can look at. And generally, reserves need to be between 5 and 10 kilometers in size to have a good effect on fisheries. But the last question is, where would you do this? And this is where the marine planning is very important. And when you have information on how those coral or fish larvae move from place to place, that can help you choose wisely. So an example would be if you're trying to achieve a conservation benefit, you're mostly going to focus on reefs that are able to withstand themselves without dependence on lots of other places. In other words, they're self-sufficient. And we might prefer places that retain many of their larvae. They're just not dependent on other locations. If they get extra larvae coming from other places, that's great, but it isn't a requirement. In contrast, if you want a fisheries benefit, then the best thing you can do, if you know that the site at the bottom there with the $3 is the most important fishing ground, and many of the new fish are coming from a reef that's located upstream, that is sending new baby fish to the areas that are being fished, then putting your protection in the brood site upstream should give you good benefits to that fishing ground. And we can use connectivity information, this is in the Sundarbans seascape, to try to identify these locations. So here, for example, are places that are strongly retaining their larvae. And you can design networks of protection that maximize those fisheries benefits using this information. And again, these tools have been developed in Indonesia and they have been used by government for planning in a variety of locations. So to conclude, keeping a handle and keeping observing the biodiversity on coral reefs is important. There's a lot at stake, especially for fisheries productivity. If we allow reefs to degrade, that will impact our productivity. Often, one of the great things you can do to intervene is recognize that some reefs have got very different futures than others. Some are much more resilient, for example. But we definitely need sound marine spatial planning. And Indonesia is very progressive with its marine spatial planning. And so it's great to see that these biodiversity considerations are being considered as part of the marine spatial planning process. And I would argue that, science is important at trying to help management, helping managers make better decisions, because we only ever have a relatively small budget to do things, which means we can only intervene at a relatively small number of sites, especially if you're thinking of restoring a habitat. So using science to choose the places where you could be most effective is really helpful. And of course, we have lots to do. So thank you for your attention. And I hope that just helps make the case for achieving biodiversity goals alongside everything else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mambi, for the explanation. It was very interesting topics concerning about the underwaters, because we in Indonesia, we seldom focus on that because we cannot see it, so we don't understand the importance of keeping our reefs and corals. Yeah, so with your explanation, it makes it easier for us to better understand the importance of keeping this habitat, even though we cannot see it. Okay, and the next presentation from our third speakers is from Thailand. I would like to say hi first to Mr. Amondek Inkau.
Hello.
Is that correct?
Yes.
How I pronounce your name?
Yes, correctly.
Okay, Mr. Inkau. But first, I would like to give a brief introduction about you first to our audience. So Mr. Amondek Inkau is the lecturer in Rajamangala University of Technology Sriwijaya. It's in Tamyaitung Song. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay, in Thailand. Okay, so how long is that from Bangkok?
Around 8 hours. 8 hours
Eight-
by car and 1 hour by plane.
By
8 hour by car and 1 hour by plane.
1 hour by plane, 8 hour by car. Okay, so I've never been there, so I would like to go there. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Inkau here got his bachelor degree from Raja Mangala University of Technology Tanyaburi, and you have been to Surabaya, right?
Right, 4 months in 2012.
2012 in the exchange student program.
Yes.
Okay, nice. And then he got his master degree from National Taipei University of Technology. So I see here that Mr. Inkau have some industrial experiences. He had worked in Isuzu Motors, Thailand, and also in Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand, and also Air Electric Thailand. So he has many experiences in the industry. So this will, I believe this will help Mr. Inkau to know better about the business administration thing. Okay, so please welcome Mr. Inkau.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I feel a little bit nervous because this kind of event is it's international event. Okay, so first let me share the screen. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
right,
we can see it
everyone.
clearly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me hide it. Okay. So my name is Amon Inkau, and I just became a lecturer at the Faculty of Management Technology, Rajamongkol University of Technology, which I just for a year. And then it's a great pleasure to be here today. And today I would like to share with you about the opportunities and challenges of transformation in maritime economic perspective. And the focus on here today is on fisheries and aquaculture. Okay. Why fisheries and aquaculture are important? Because fish and aquaculture, aquatic products can feed people all over the world. And the price of fish products is not that expensive. It has some expensive price, right? But compared to the meat and chicken and pork or any kind of meat nowadays, the price is increasing due to the inflation. But the price of the fish still remain the same, doesn't increase that much. And the world population is also growing. So having enough fish to feed people is very important. And the aquatic animal production is forecasted to grow another 14% by 2030. So actually, the number is still growing compared to the forecast like 10 years ago. It is forecasted to a number, but now at the present time, the number has already increased beyond that forecast. So it will increase more, 14%. So that means that by increasing this 14%, there will be the expense of just like the pollution to the environment. So it is very important to deal with all the pollution and do well with the waste management. And here, okay, next one is a blue transformation can meet food security and environmental sustainability. Okay, even though the growth is going up, we need to make sure that the growth is sustainable. It can ensure the food security to people in the world and can reduce the number of hungry people in the future. Okay, and aquatic food system are a powerful solution. Blue transformation requires a commitment from the public and private sector. Okay, and Indonesia is an island country, right? And more than 60% or 70% of Indonesia is attached to the sea. So Indonesia has a really high potential of the fish, right? Fish products and also the coastal plants, the coral reef, yeah, many things, and is exported to other countries as well. Okay. So this is the brief information about the Indonesia fisheries. Indonesia is the world's largest fishing nation after China. Okay, and the world's coral species make up 76%, and 37% of the world's coral reef species are in Indonesia. And Indonesia consumption of animal protein comes from fish, accounted for 54%. And the fishery sector in Indonesia contributed to the national GDP 2.6%. And the production growth compared to in 2021 and 2020, the growth is growing 4.55%. Okay. And this is the Indonesia's canned fish production. Thank you for Professor Budi for sharing me some pictures of cannery, local cannery in Indonesia. And this is kind of the small and medium enterprise in the local community production of the canned fish. And actually, there's a lot of local and medium enterprise. And on the right-hand side, this is a larger scale, and it has a production line, and it is exported to another country, to other countries as well. Okay, so it will be very powerful if Indonesia can have the stronger and also the better management in the local community production. So probably the bank can give more loans to the local production, local cannery. Okay, so now let's have a look about the data about the top 10 global capture producers. The largest producer of the fish products is China, and Indonesia is number 2. Thailand is not included here. Okay, so any other countries in Southeast Asia? Vietnam is produce a lot of fish products and also seafood also. Okay, so here let's have a look at the top 10 exporting countries of aquatic products by value. This is the information from 2020. China is the largest exporting countries, but Vietnam, Thailand is also included in this list, but Indonesia is not included. So there must be something interesting about this issue, right? Indonesia is the second largest exporter of fish, but Indonesia is no producer. But in terms of exporting, Indonesia is not included. As I check in another source of information, Indonesia is ranked probably 12 out of from this list. So I think Indonesia has a high potential in investing and doing more to become in the top 10 exporting countries of aquatic products. Okay, so here's the top 10 importing countries of aquatic products by value. We can notice that most of the countries included in this list is the high income country, right? Thailand is actually not included, but actually Thailand doesn't produce, doesn't have that much fish, just like the tuna canned fish. Actually, we import a lot from other countries and process in Thailand. Okay, and here is the Thailand's tuna industry. Okay. Thailand has a body called Thai Tuna Industry Association, and this association, they make sure that all the company members are comply with all regulations, and also make them ready to export to other countries. And actually, yeah, as I told you before, Thailand can produce only 10% of the tuna. We can catch only 10%, and most of the tuna that can be caught in Thailand is not too big, but we imported a lot from China, Taiwan, and also Indonesia. And on the right hand side, you can see this is the picture of the yellowfin tuna is loaded onto a truck in West Java, and after that it is brought to process in Thailand and then export to other countries in the world. Okay. And RCEP, what is RCEP? RCEP is Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This has been effective since the 1st of July 2022, and this has become the world's largest free trade agreement. It comprises of 10 ASEAN countries and 5 other countries in Asia Pacific. And Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar, and Indonesia, these countries have high potential in producing fish, right? And can export a lot. First, we can export and trade within the trade bloc within the, our region. And so the import tariff within each country is also reduced. So this means that we can trade more freely, and Indonesia can also export more, right? But we still need to have a look how, in the future, if Indonesia can strengthen the competitiveness of the fish export or not, or lose competitiveness to some countries. Okay, so we need to have a close look on this. And then, yeah, let me talk about the aquaculture AI technology. This actually invented in Japan a couple of years ago. Okay, so this technology, they put the camera between the tank. It was tested in 200 tanks of fish in the south of Japan. And the camera will capture the fish. And then after that, the AI technology will capture the size, the width and the length of the fish. And then it was calculated automatically for the farmer to see how much food, how much feed should they give to the fish, because the food that is fed to the fish is makes like a very, very big cost. So they want to reduce the cost. The cost of the feed to for the fish is about more than 50% or 60%. So it's a lot of money. So this technology can help decrease the cost a lot. And also they also adopted some technology like drone, and also they use a drone with a camera to detect the tide, and also the density of the aquatic animals in the sea. So this will help the future aquatic farming a lot. Okay. And the core of the FAO, or the Food and Agriculture Organization program priority, is to make healthy and nutritional aquatic food available to all, because the food, the seafood is not expensive, and it is available to everyone. And also, if we can make this happen and create more seafood, so that means that there will be more farmers, aquatic farmer, seafood farmer nearby the sea. So this will create the job for people in those areas, because most of the people living in those areas have the very little income. And after that, if they can do this, the income for exporting will increase also, and it will also help the development in the country. Okay. So here's a blue transformation. So the blue transformation mainly they want to reduce the number of the hungry people, and also want to ensure that the food security it can feed people worldwide. And also effective management of all fisheries. This is very important, because sometimes overfishing, they catch a fish in the sea. Sometimes they catch a young fish, so the fish cannot reproduce anymore. So this will affect to the stock depletion of the fish in the future. So if the management is good, there will be more fish for us to eat. Okay, and the upgraded value chains is also very important. This is to ensure the social, economic, and environmental viability of aquatic food system and secure nutritional outcomes. Okay, and here's the opportunities and challenges for Indonesia. All right. The opportunities, as Indonesia is also the world's largest tuna producer, like skipjack, tuna, and yellowfin. So Indonesia should play an important role in exporting tuna more, process in the country more, adopting the technology, and also produce in the larger scales to enjoy the economies of scale. All right, because the demand is also very high for the canned fish nowadays. In the period of the COVID-19 pandemic, people avoid eating out, right? They eat in their home, so they want to have something like ready to eat, very easy. So they buy canned fish a lot, and actually, the Thailand's canned fish, tuna canned fish, increased a lot, like 20% compared to last year. And the major importing country is America. America is actually imported our product more than 50%. And after that, followed by Vietnam and Indonesia. So yeah, Indonesia actually has high potential, and with the RCEP free trade agreement, so this makes it possible for Indonesia to export more. But Indonesia still needs to invest more in the kind of like technology, and to enjoy the more economies of scale. Foreign direct investment and also the domestic investment, this is very important to make the tuna or the canned fish processing fish industry stronger. And also nowadays, there's a lot of technology that can reduce the cost for the fish farmers, just like the AI, which I've shown you earlier. And nowadays, as I read, Indonesia government is supporting a lot, is supporting local farmers a lot. So this is so this probably create a big change for Indonesian seafood and exporting, canning, processing industry. But anyway, there's still some challenges. The first challenge probably is because of the seaport efficiency. The development of the cold chain system, the refrigerator system, is very important because fish is easily rotten, right? So refrigeration system should be enough, and the competitiveness in terms of product, price, and service, these need to be taken into account, because Indonesia is pretty far away. And there are many islands. So when considering the price of the things, just like the freight charge of the vessel, of the container. So yeah, everything including it seems to me more expensive than Thailand, because Thailand we have like two oceans on the left side and on the right side. So it makes it easier and cheaper for unloading and also exporting. But Indonesia actually has a lot of very high potential, because as I read in the news, Indonesia has developed really, really fast compared to 10 years ago. It's like completely different. Okay. And the regulations of importing countries. So by importing the products to other developed countries like America or the EU or Europe, it is not the same as the ASEAN consumption. In our countries, probably we don't have like that much regulations in terms of the food. We have, it's not that we don't have, but when exporting to those countries in the US or to the EU, they have much more regulation, and it requires a time of paperwork. And the next thing is the competitive advantage. These also needs to be taken into account, because Thailand, Vietnam has been players in this industry for a long time, and Indonesia still need to fight to overcome those countries. Okay, and the traceability is also very important, because nowadays, people, especially in the developed country, they want to know where the product comes from, right? So they want to check with the supplier if the supplier get the fish legally or not, or they do everything clean and safe or not. Okay, so these are something to do with the information requires a lot of it's a lot of activities, and also there is a time consumption also. Okay, and the last thing is a high cost of technology. Even though nowadays there's a lot of technologies available, just like the AI, the IoT and stuff, but the cost of technology is still very high, because it is invented not a long time ago. And by doing this in Indonesia or even in Thailand, is a big money. So every party has to calculate, right, if it is worth investing or not. Okay, so this is all for my presentation today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Inka, for the presentation. Now we are in the question and answer session. So for the audience, if you'd like to give your question to our distinguished speakers, you can type it in the chat room. And also, maybe for the first question, if any of you want to ask directly to our speakers. Okay, I see here that Miss Dewi Jasmiwati raised hand. Miss Dewi?
Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
Ms. Febrina Hambala.
Yes.
I would like to thank for all speakers who have give the information and knowledge today. I would like to ask first to Mr. Tatit from Bakamla. From your explanation, we can see that we have many problems. One of it is oil spill in the sea. And according to the data, how about the destruction of the oil spill in the sea right now? And how is the government regulation about it? It is effective or not effective? This is for Mr. Tatit. And then for Mr. Peter Mumbe from Australia, about the coral, yeah, actually Indonesia also already preserved for the coral, so the fishing, I mean, the fish will not lose their home. I mean, because this is like a home for the fish. And I want to ask about in the future, from the data right now, how is your estimation of the future of the coral destruction now, especially in the Asia Pacific Ocean? Okay, and the third is for Mr. Amodek. This is very nice presentation about the economy. I want to know more about the Thailand fisheries productivity. I mean, how much is the contribution of Thailand fisheries to gross national product in Thailand, and how the government will increase the productivity? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dewi. The first question is for Mr. Tatit about oil spill in Indonesia. We would like for Mr. Tatit to answer this first question, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Devi, for your good question. I try to answer about oil spill. Our effort to overcome, to face the problem of oil spill, usually most often occurs in waters of Bintan. Of course, we will deploy our asset or our patrol boat independently, and also we conduct joint patrol with related institution like Marine Police of Indonesia, and then also we call it in Indonesia TAP LP or Port Authority, and now we are supported by National Space Agency. What is National Space Agency? 8 dari lembaga antariksa dan penerbangan, which can detect the oil spills in our water. So we also use our situ center. We have a special technology to detect oil spill and to know the history, the track of the ship, which probably spill the oil. And so now we conduct the joint coordination, which is used by our situ center. And again, we also make good cooperation with our partner, especially with Maritime Pollution Institution in Singapore. We call it Maritime Pollution and Police Coast Guard with Singapore institution. I think that's my answer for your question, Ms. Devi.
Thank you.
Okay, for the second question, it is for Mr. Mambi. Mr. Mambi?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for that question. You know, there's two things that we need to have a healthy coral reefs in Asia Pacific in the future. One of them, of course, is continued local protection of human impacts. So improving the watershed, reducing the excessive fishing in areas, especially where the watershed is delivering nutrients. But the other thing is we need action mitigating emissions. And we've done some work looking at what does the future hold for coral reefs if we change the action on climate change? And there's a huge range. So at one extreme, if we were to achieve 1.5 degrees of warming, which is the most ambitious target, of course, then what we see is the amount of thermal stress increases a little bit towards the middle of the century, and then it declines by the end of this century to where it is now, right? So that's a very good outcome. If you were to go to 2 degrees of warming, then we see that the level of stress increase by a modest amount by the end of the century. We measure the level of warming of the ocean using a scale called degree heating weeks. At the moment, the worst we tend to see is a value of about 8 or 10. And I apologize for the noise behind me. They're having a sports day at the university, and I can't silence the guy who's doing the speaking. But if we were to follow some of the more pessimistic high carbon futures, we would be looking at heat waves that are 4 times more intensive than they have been to date. And there's no way that you can see a good future for corals if we do that. So we need to continue to mitigate emissions passionately and aggressively, and combine that with a continued marine planning of local effects.
Okay, so that's the answer from Mr. Mambi about the future of corals. And then the next question is for Mr. Inkau about Thailand fisheries contribution.
All right. Okay. Thailand fishery make up around 2% of the total GDP of the country, and in the agriculture sector, it is contributed to 10% of the total number of the Okay, and for the policies that the government is trying to do, they're trying to strengthen all the aquatic farmers to be smart farmers, and they're trying to use a new technology in order to increase the efficiency and also to reduce the cost, the production cost. And they also trying to detect and also make sure that all the fishery products have standard to be able to to be competitive in the long run. And also there are some research about the new information and technology, and also try to add some values. Okay, yeah, that's what I could answer. And I also got a question from Pak Budi, right? Okay, that okay, how can we
yeah, the question in the chat room.
Okay, I have how you develop collaboration between Indonesia and Thailand. Okay, how can we hire the industry to join in collaboration to develop the application of technology for industries of coastal community? Okay, actually Thailand doesn't have that high technology yet compared to other developed nations, but we are still developing so many things, but we still need to depend the advanced technology from other countries as well. So what can be more possible is a joint business, is a joint venture of Thailand, Indonesia, and also some advanced nation, and we invest together. Actually, Thailand is testing a lot already in the fishery industry, but we still need to depend the advance from other countries. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I think the question is personally sent to you because we cannot see for the general chat room. Sorry, but it's okay because you have explained it. And now we go to the next question. Is from from Miss Mia Maulita. So she is a student of ours, and the question is for Mr. Tatit as a Bakamla, and she asked that, as we all know, when Mrs. Susi served as the Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, she had a policy of sinking ships that carried out illegal fishing in Indonesian waters. Is Mrs. Susi previous policy still being used today, or has there been a new policy change, and what kind of new policy that exists today? And the other question is for Mr. Mambi. She asked about how do you educate the public, especially fishermen, not to do destructive fishing in order to preserve the aquatic ecosystem. So I would like to have Mr. Tatit to answer the first question.
Thank you, Miss Maulitia, for your question. I try to answer. When we are talking about policy of the fisheries ministry, especially the previous minister, Mrs. Susi Pujiastuti, dealing with sinking ship, according, in my opinion, that policy is still could be conducted actually, dealing with law and national regulation, because sinking is a part of trial and prosecution. But according to your question, what about that policy? Still will be carried out. I would like to inform that Bakamla is not under the Ministry of Fisheries. So as far as I know, the Ministry of Fisheries now they have their own policy for managing sustainable fisheries. We call it in Indonesia penangkapan ikan terukul. But when they are talking about enforcement, up to now, Indonesian law still use the same regulation. Actually, I would like to answer in Indonesia, but actually the policy and the regulation remains the same. So fisheries enforcement is the same today. The difference is just the process, whether the ship which is catched will be sink, or just the ship will be what we call it in English, sita, detained by our country. As far as I know, the Mrs. Susi Pujiastuti is just conduct the, we call it efek jerah in a short time. What is efek jerah? Deterrence effect in a short time for especially for foreign violators. Is it enough?
Is that clear enough, Miss Mia?
Yeah, is it clear enough? I hope it's clear.
Okay, it's she said that's pretty clear. Thank you, Mr. Tatit. And the next question is for Mr. Mambi.
Yes,
please.
so sometimes the best action might seem a bit unusual, and a lot of the reason that people use destructive fishing practices is because they've moved to the coast and they don't have a history of fishing. They're not very good at fishing, and so they do these things to catch fish because they're not good fishing. And sometimes the best way you can address that is by training them to become better, more responsible fishers. But I think the broader answer is this is where behavior change strategies can be extremely useful. I've witnessed a behavior change strategy on ocean plastic that was done in Salaya, South Sulawesi, and it was really effective. You know, but really starts by allowing people to consider the problem and find their own solutions to solving the problem.
I don't think so.
That's really the way that one might have to address issues of destructive fishing. I mean, obviously there's an enforcement compliance part of it, but coupled with support to try to help people find alternatives. But yes, very good question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Mr. Mambi. And also, Mr. Mambi already attached an article. I believe it's a journal article about the 1.5 warming effect. Okay, so maybe the students could read the paper and getting to know better about the importance of this to give the right actions to save the coral reefs. Okay, is there anyone in the audience wants to ask the question lively? Okay, so there's a question from our professor, Professor Masroro Lili Ekowanti, and this question is for Bakamla, I believe. So Prof. Lili asked that I see that Bakamla is not yet qualified to be the Sea and Coast Guard. There should be an independent Sea and Coast Guard directly under the president. What do you think? So I believe this question is for Mr. Tatit.
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you, Professor. I would like to confirm your question. According to you, that nowadays Bakamla is not to be qualified, and yet there should be independent Sea and Coast Guard directly under the president. Professor, I would like to inform you, all the participants, that since 2014, Bakamla is as a board directly under the president. And as I know that president is already mentioned that Bakamla is the embryo of our Indonesia Coast Guard in the future. So Bakamla has already shown the good, we call it good one is the success of the catching the big or the giant two motor tanker in 2021, which is conduct the oil truck transshipment, and also many prestasi itu apa achievement, a good achievement when Bakamla catch the violator, it is bring narcotica in Seribu Island. Why the Bakamla day to day will be a better institution? Because we are supported by a national law, which is stated in paragraph 61 and 62 and 63 on regulation number 34/2014. We have authority and we have a function to conduct law enforcement action. I hope this answer is clear enough to confirm, to make sure the professor that Bakamla will be qualified day to day in the future. Professor, thank you.
Okay, is that clear enough, Professor Lily, for the answer?
Okay.
Okay, so the next question is for Mr. Peter Mambi, and the question is, how do you solve conflict of interest, marine spatial planning between national government, provincial government, and local government? I believe this is the question based in Australia. And yeah, Mr. Mambi, could you please answer this question?
It's a very good question. And I think if I knew the answer to this, I would probably be a lot wealthier than I am now. I'd have some real secrets. You know, it is a challenge. You know, in the Australian context, we really have two scales of management. We have national government and we have state government. And they each have different jurisdictions, as they do in Indonesia. And they have to work very hard at doing things jointly. And so they have a lot of practical agreements to co-manage aspects of the marine environment so that they jointly do the monitoring of it. They jointly do the enforcement of things. But, you know, it's always something of a challenge. And so it's very hard to know what is the best way to deal with this problem. You know, that the fact that much of the power was taken from district levels to province levels in Indonesia, you know, creates some challenges for people to work with. But then working at a small scale, often, of course, there's real value in working at a larger scale, because you're more likely to have the resources and capacity to do marine spatial planning that at each of the 350 districts. So I don't really have a good answer to your question, I'm afraid. It's something that requires continual communication. And I haven't seen a lot of really good examples of how it can be done very, very well. I wish I had. So thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, Mr. Mambi. So for the next question, we have a raised hand from Mr. Budi. Mr. Budi, are you here with us? Mr. Budi? Okay, maybe he's not yet with us. Okay, so is there, sorry, hang on. Okay. So is there any other question from the audience? Yes. Mr. Budi. Okay.
Please use chat room. Please.
Hello.
Please use chat room.
Sorry, I vaguely hear you.
Please use chat. Please use chat.
Can you say it louder, please? Okay. Okay, while we wait for Mr. Budi, can we, for other audience, you may type down your question for our speakers. If you have some connection issue, you can type down your question in the chat room. Okay, I think that's all for the first session. Okay, we got another question here, Harry. Oh, I see. Sorry. The next, the question is from Jackson Simamora. Okay, question is for Mr. Tatit as Bakamla. He asked that in this year we have Peraturan Presiden Decree number 34 year 2022 about Rencana Aksi Kebijakan Kelautan Indonesia. Do you think this rule can develop our maritime and how to integrate many authorities in maritime sectors? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for your good question. If I may answer with a short answer, will be yes, Mr. Jackson. Yes, we will can conduct to integrate many authority in maritime domain area because inside the Peraturan Presiden, what we call it, Presiden regulation, there will be another document such as first is national policy for security and safety. Then this document will be should be finished before the end of this year. Then secondly is already signed by Menteri Polhukam. We call it National Integrated Patrol. Then now Bakamla will be supported by the Situ Center of related institution or supported institution, which is consists of 5 related institution. The institution have also a Situ Center. Then the Situ Center of related institution will be integrated in IMIC, Indonesia Maritime Information Center. Today and for 3 months ahead, will build integrated system of information system. So for sure that Bakamla will be able to integrate many authority in the area of operation in the area of information sharing, also in the area in the policy. I hope that this answer will satisfy you, Mr. Jackson. Thank you. Or we can continue discuss and talk each other in Indonesian language, Mr. Simamora.
So is the answer clear enough for you, Mr. Simamora? Oh, you can unmute your microphone. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sabrina and Mr. Tatit. I think it's enough. Thank you, your answer.
Okay. And the next question, I believe this will be our last question because we almost got to the time for session 2. And the question is from Mr. Edi Purnama. Mr. Edi Purnama?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thanks. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Edi. I am from Bandung, from Universitas Nasional Pasir Bandung. Actually, I really like go fishing. Yeah. Maybe I'm the one of the Indonesian hobbyists of Indonesian fishing, including with my friends, Professor Dr. Ulan from UPI. Sometimes I go fishing to Pantura, ya, Pantai Utara, or sometimes Selatan. In Pantura, so I would like to, I find out something that there are a lot of lesser case in ocean, yeah, I mean, such as leak of the rig, kebocoran salah satu rig, ya. I found many times that when I was fishing, that I found that leak of the rig atau kebocoran daripada satu rig atau mungkin banyak sekali, ya. My question is how does Bakamla and ordinarily some let's say that former into stations that how do we manage about let's say that pencemaran, ya, pencemaran salah satu dari laut terhadap ikan dan consumption. Ini sometimes ini lebih penting lah, lebih, it is really important for us to manage the problem. I think it's not only about the fishery and industry, but let's say that pencemaran itu is really important for us because there are a lot of people, maybe 1 million of people consume the fish in Pantura and so on. So I think how does Bakamla, ini untuk Bapak Tatit, ya, mungkin I would like to ask you, apakah Bakamla mempunyai badan khusus tentang pencemaran lingkungan? And then the second to Dr. Peter, I would like to ask you about how does microbiology between Australia and Indonesia, maybe do we have to, or we must have maybe cooperation between studying of microbiology in Australia and in Indonesia, because as we know that Indonesia and Australia have the borders, because microbiology in Australia and Indonesia, maybe it can be moved from flow or stream of the water, so it affects each other. How do we manage about let's say that the borders about the maritime Indonesia or microbiology? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Edi Purnama, and we would like to have Mr. Tatit to answer the first question about the oil leak, the authorization of Bakamla to deal with the leaking oil from the oil rig in northern coast of Java Island.
Thank you, Mr. Edi. Try to answer your question dealing with oil spill. To be honest, that Bakamla, we don't have any special treatment for oil spill.
Yeah.
I will inform that we have already good cooperation with Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup.
Oh, I see.
We have a they have already good cooperation. So when we conduct or deploy our joint patrol, we always involve the personnel, the staf ahli of Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup to join with our patrolling activity. In my opinion, talking about the oil spill, the main important thing is how to detect, how to mencegah, how to how to avoid is very difficult, because you see there's a very bad attitude or very bad culture of our seafarers. But for us, for the law enforcement, the main important thing is how to detect there is oil spill in this area. So we also make a good cooperation with LAPAN, and we use satellite technology to detect the oil spill in the waters. And then we also use another technology how to track some ships which is past that area, so we can record, or we can detect a certain ship, and we will catch. We will inspect some ships around the area which is oil spill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tati. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's the answer from Bakamla. And the next question is for Mr. Peter Mambi about microbiology cooperation between Indonesia and Australia.
Yes, thank you for that question. And I agree that Australia and Indonesia share a lot of common interests in a geographic area. Obviously, the Timor Sea and the sea around coming up to Papua, we have very close interests there. In terms of microbiology, I think I don't know the extent to which that's on government radars in terms of how to collaborate. My sense is that there's a lot we could get much closer together as countries collaborating on areas of mutual interest. My sense is that there hasn't been as much country-to-country engagement recently, at least from the Australian side. And that's partly because Australia has kind of pivoted towards the Pacific politically. And many of us are very keen to see the strengthening of relationships with the ASEAN area. And so, there are strengths there, but I think it could be built upon a great deal. And at this stage, many of those collaborations are on an institutional level without much government support. So, for example, at my institution, University of Queensland, we've had lots of ongoing relationships with partners in the Indonesian government and other research institutions. And, those have been driven in part by the relationships among academics and amongst scientists. And I think that's great. But microbiology is it's not my field, but it's such a fast moving and important field. I would think there would be huge scope for strengthening that. But I think it would have to come under an umbrella of greater government recognition of the need for science to collaborate. I mean, one of the great things about scientific collaboration among countries is that it's very practical. It's not political. It's a way of engaging that creates joint ventures that, it's a very sort of soft level of diplomacy. So, if there's anything we can do to strengthen that, we will certainly try. And I hope the same is true in Indonesia. But yeah, I have personally lots of long-term collaborations in Indonesia. And, I would love to see our government strengthen its commitment to supporting those sorts of relationships. But I'm just one voice.
Thanks, Dr. Peter. Thank you very much. Okay, good.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Mr. Edi Purnama. And now we have come to the end session, the end of our first session. I would like to thank for our distinguished speakers, Mr. Tatit, Mr. Mambi, and also Mr. Inkau for the explanation and the enlightenments for us. And thank you for being here today with us. And for the second session, we will start with the presentation from Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad. Okay, he is from University Utara Malaysia. He is now the director of Asian Institute of International Affairs and Diplomacy, School of International Studies. And his academic qualification is he got his PhD in Maritime Policy in University of Wollongong, Australia. He also got his Master of Art in Maritime Policy there in Wollongong University. And also, and for his bachelor degree in international relations with concentration on Asia, he got it from University of Memphis, USA. Okay, please welcome Mr. Muhammad Zaki from Malaysia. Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Madam Moderator, for your kind introductions.
Okay, you're welcome.
I think the first thing that I would like to do is to share my presentation slides. And,
yes, please. Thank you. Okay, we can see it clearly.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Nanti saya akan masuk. Because I try to give a full image. I just want to, maybe I can wait for a while. Later on, I'll show you. But can you guys still see the slides?
Yeah, we can see the slides clearly.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. All right, to begin with, I would like to wish Assalamualaikum and selamat pagi semua, bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu, dan mas dan mbak. I would like to convey my gratitude to the organizing committee for inviting me to give a presentation regarding blue economy. And specifically, I'll be looking at the strategy of achieving a sustainable blue economy with a focus on the implementations in coastal and small island developing states. Now, the very fact is that one cannot deny that the significance and contributions of the ocean and sea to humanity and natural environment is something that one cannot deny. And 2/3 of the Earth's surface are covered by the oceans and the sea. These vast maritime areas are home to rich and diverse biodiversity of flora and fauna, some of which, unfortunately, belong to endangered marine species such as transboundary fish species like Atlantic bluefin tuna. The oceans and the seas act as a climate and temperature controllers, and nearly 50% of the Earth's oxygens are produced from these maritime areas. In addition, the oceans are also the largest carbon sink, meaning that they absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere emitted mostly from industrial-based fossil fuel emissions. And the world ocean and sea continue to offer abundant renewable and non-renewable marine resources, many of which remain unexplored and exploited, particularly in the forms of mineral in deep seabed areas. at this moment, billions of peoples around the world relying on the oceans and the sea for their livelihood, food, recreational activities, as well as many of countries surrounded by the ocean and sea, notably developing small island states, rely on ocean-based sectors for their revenues as well as for job opportunities. These include marine capture fisheries as well as tourism sectors. Despite the profound so-called contributions of the oceans and sea to the natural environment and humankind, it is worth noting that these vast maritime areas are not exempted from experiencing a myriad of ongoing problems and challenges. Now, for example, the Food and Agriculture Organizations of the United Nations, or FAO, estimated that fish stocks in many economically important fishing grounds are alarmingly declined due to overfishing, marine pollution, as well as bycatch practices. It is estimated by the FAO that approximately 1/3 of the world fish stocks are overexploited now. Another driving factors contributing to this declining fish stocks is IUU fishing. As already mentioned just now by our esteemed presenters, IUU fishing activities have been prevalent in both coastal waters and even in the middle treacherous remote oceans, thousands of kilometers away from land. Destructive fishing methods such as fish bombings, cyanide fishing, as well as illegal transshipment of fish at sea and foreign fishing encroachments are some of the examples of IUU fishing that are quite common and often recorded in this part of the world, especially in Southeast Asia. Indonesia is one of the coastal states that continue to face these IUU fishing problems. Indonesia's continue to lose around 20 billion worth of fish annually to IUU fishing alone. And globally, between 26 billion to 50 billion US dollars were lost due to IUU fishing. Now, other alarming trends that currently affecting the oceans and the sea is the destructions of and damages on sensitive marine ecosystems such as coral reefs, seagrass, and mangrove forests. Besides IUU fishing, marine pollution incidents have become a common phenomena involving, for example, such as oil spills, total suspended solids, including plastics and styrofoams, as well as organic materials coming from land-based, even vessel-based activities. Now, another issues of concern is global warming and climate change. And this is something that quite relevant to many countries considered to be categorized as small islands developing states. Many communities living in the low-lying areas, which extensively depended on marine resources for food and employment, are under threat by the rising of sea waters, beach erosions, and coral bleaching. These problems are more reportedly prevailing in many small island nations in the Pacific Oceans, in the Indian Oceans, as well as in the Caribbean Sea. Now, other worrisome sea-related issues that could threaten the safety of shipping and potentially disrupt seaborne trade movement is the increasing incidence of piracy and sea robberies in the waters where major global shipping routes are located, such as the Malacca Straits and Gulf of Aden. Bear in mind, there are about approximately 90% of global trade depending on shipping sectors. Now, regardless of these aforementioned problems, the actual and potential benefits and opportunities generated from the use of marine aquatic resources and environments under the framework of blue economic sectors cannot be discounted. Now, the ongoing maritime-related issues and challenges may have directly or indirectly affect or even undermine long-term sustainability and robust growth of economic sector, but such development does not discourage developing coastal and small island states to continue pursuing and harnessing the benefits obtained from these blue economic sectors. Therefore, The outline of my presentation is I would like to focus on giving some form of a definitions of blue economy and the essence of blue economy. It is a concept that has been promoted and gained popularity since the last 2 decades. I also will discuss about issues and challenges of attaining a blue economy, particularly in developing coastal states and small island nations. And moving forward, I will provide or outline a number of strategies towards achieving this blue economy, particularly applicable in the context of coastal and small island nations. And I'll conclude my presentations after that. Now, looking into what is the definitions of a blue economy. Now, one can say that blue economy is a macro economy concept promoting and sustainable utilizations of ocean resources and environment while enabling humans to continue to benefit from this practice. It is so-called a concept that necessitates changes in how we perceive, manage, govern, and utilize marine resources and coastal areas. The blue economy can be defined as a sustainable use of the ocean, sea, and marine resources for generating revenue, employment, economic growth, and other socioeconomic benefits without compromising and destroying marine ecosystem. So there's what we call striking a balance between reaping the benefits from exploiting these marine resources, but at the same time, you are not allowed to destroy the marine ecosystems and habitats. Now, what are the key essence of blue economy? Perhaps I think one of the key essence that relates to this blue economy is a concept that which is to strike a balance of fostering economic growth, societal inclusion, and livelihood improvements created by ocean-based economies, while at the same time safeguarding environmental and ecological sustainability and integrity of the oceans and coastal areas. This means that developing maritime economic sector must go hand in hand in protecting the marine ecosystems and habitat. Now, there are basically a number of multiple sectors of blue economy, or basically when we're talking about blue economies, it involves multiple sectors. What I can say is that depending on the region, depending on individual countries, these blue economy sectors may have relevancy, may have priorities, and so forth. But for many coastal and small island developing states, most of the sectors related to blue economies are coming from conventional economic sectors, such as marine and coastal, tourism, aquaculture, maritime transport, what else? Oil and gas, to a more recent economic activities, which I believe that not so much shared or being shared by the coastal small island developing states. But usually these kind of sectors will involve technological advancement, yeah? Among them such as renewable energy, desalinations, and maritime or marine biotechnologies. So basically, most of the majority of the small island developing states, usually they will concentrate on more on marine and aquaculture sectors, or marine fisheries and aquaculture sectors, or even coastal and marine tourism sectors. So basically, these are the two dominant blue economic sectors that are being relied on by these small island nations. Now, coming back to the challenges. So what are the challenges facing by the developing coastal states and small island states in attaining a sustainable blue economy? Perhaps in terms of challenges, most of them, of course, share some what we call a common intrinsic futures. There are some problems, they do share these kind of challenges and problems among them. Perhaps the first obvious challenge that can be observed is the absence of adequate and developed infrastructures and facilities, such as paved road network, electricity, sewage system, ports, and airports. Many of these states, particularly in the South Pacific Oceans, are small in size and remotely located. Hence, inter-island communication has also been made complicated and difficult, as the state itself consists of several small islands that are located far from each other. Consequently, this low transfer connectivity undermine their sustainable development and growth, as their socio-economic prospects largely depend on their ability to access international market. So if they do not have enough or adequate or what we call efficient road systems or air transportation systems, so it does impede them to have some form of a more wider access to international markets, because the products or the one that being produced from these islands cannot be transported or cannot be exported to other countries. Now, to make matter worse, small island developing states are prone to natural disasters such as hurricanes and coastal floodings and erosion, beach erosion, coastal erosion, which have often destroyed the local infrastructure. Yeah, in September 2017, for example, the Hurricane Irma, Category 5 storms, left a trail of destruction across the Caribbean Sea, displacing over 1.7 million people, including in Haiti, Antigua and Bermuda, and the Dominican Republics. So without proper and adequate infrastructure, which is vital for transporting and exporting products, these states are left behind in participating global economic activities. The second common intrinsic feature of challenge shared by coastal and small island developing states is a shortage of assets and manpower. Based on the latest population consensus released by the World Bank, many of them, on average, especially those what we call small island nations, they mostly have very small populations, yeah, and some even less than 50,000 people, yeah, and this can be seen in the form of Nauru, Tuvalu, and Palau. And in addition, one of the challenges facing these states in the area of maritime law enforcement is the lack of inventory of vessel fleets to conduct effective surveillance and patrolling activities in their vast EEZ waters. And some of these EEZ waters or exclusive economic zones are much more larger than the land territory itself. It is no surprise that incidents of foreign illegal encroachment, particularly from Chinese fishing vessels, has been frequently reported in those waters due to the lack of law enforcement activities in those waters. Now, limited financial resources is another obstacle for these states to develop their blue economic sector, especially fisheries and tourism. So it is important now to understand that allocations of adequate funding for infrastructure development, such as roads, ports, and even airports, not only improve transport connectivities, but also attract foreign investors, because they believe that since the infrastructures are all there, they are more keen or more willing to invest in that islands because the infrastructure is there. Now, another issue that facing coastal and small island developing state is developing their own blue economic sector is the lack of technical capacities. So beside limited financial resources, this lack of capacity poses an obstacle to conduct or to enable them, especially to enable these states to conduct numerous technical and scientific-based research and studies, especially in the context of marine capture fisheries, where most of the developing and coastal and small island states are heavily dependent on these sectors for revenue and job opportunities. So local peoples with expertise in identifications or even developing appropriate product innovations and technologies even remain inadequate. So this is another aspect that need to take into consideration when talking about developing a blue economic sectors. They need to have the capable, competent manpowers to execute execute the tasks, especially activities that relate to such development. Now, another challenges that quite interesting that I've discovered is that when talking about gaining the revenues or even creating job opportunities, many of these states depended only a few export commodities for them to obtain foreign currency exchange or even to create job opportunities. And this is quite a common problems that are being facing by the many of the small islands developing states. And this has its disadvantage in the sense that it does create what we call the lack of financial resilience and low adaptivity capacity for recovery from the devastating impacts of external forces inflicted on these two economic sectors, which I have already mentioned just now, which are marine fishery sectors and local tourisms, coastal and marine tourisms, because they rely so much on these two sectors for their revenues, to the extent that if any disruptions coming from outside force, such as maybe more recently like COVID-19, or even if there is a natural disasters that occur in those countries, what happens is that they could not keep up. They do not possess that kind of strong resilience to recover from the devastating impacts of these external forces in the form of COVID-19, as well as in the form of natural disasters such as hurricanes. So these are some of the challenges facing developing coastal states associated with the blue economy. Now, so moving forward, so what are the strategies toward achieving a sustainable blue economy, particularly for the indigenous marine economic sectors? I think one of the initiatives to develop a sustained blue economic sector is to enhancing the technical and institutional capacities of the local people and stakeholders. And this capacity building initiative can include training programs, seminars, and consultation projects. And all these initiatives can be initiated by external organizations such as NGOs or even international or even regional organizations. Now, the purpose of this initiative basically is to train and to create a pool of local people with the technical knowledge and skill set in developing and managing their own marine economic sectors, especially those sectors that involve the need to have some form of technological know-how. Now, secondly, the second initiative is to create a platform for data sharing and disseminations in enabling the relevant policymakers, planners to make informed decisions. Hence, access to important scientific data, information collected and compiled by researchers and scientists, particularly from advanced countries, should be made available to those who are in need. So when you make decisions, you need to make an informed decisions. You cannot simply decide, especially when it's involved marine ecologies, marine ecosystems, fish stocks. All of these require marine fishery scientists to compile data, to collect data, and to analyze the data, so that it allows the fisheries managers to make an informed decisions. And also to add in, beside that, forging or basically establishing private and public partnership can be an alternative solution to fund the building of privately owned infrastructures such as resorts and hotels and enhance community resilience. So rather than relying 100% to get funding aids or funding assistance from international organizations, intergovernment organizations, I mean, that source of fund can also derive from private companies, yeah, which have interest, yeah, to invest in certain sectors in that country, especially in the context of small islands states. Most of them, as I already mentioned just now, rely so much on marine capture fisheries sectors as well as tourism sectors. So, but of course, when dealing with the private sectors, one need to remember that they despite the fact that they invest in your country, they still want to see their return of investment. So it is important to make sure that the projects or even the developments will produce some form of profits to the private sectors. Now, another elements that I would like
excuse me, sir, it's almost time.
Okay, thank you.
For the next
So
session, thank you.
I almost finished. Another one, the last one is, or even the second last one, is that states can also incorporate indigenous community-based marine resource management regime into their national policy frameworks, yeah, for ocean governance, or even coastal management. So local knowledge and understanding possessed by the community can be useful in guiding the government and marine resources and natural ecosystems. For example, coastal communities living in Raja Empat in Papua, Indonesia, have been practicing the so-called traditional approach of managing the marine resources through this so-called practice known as SASI, yeah, for generation to man. So these are some of the examples of indigenous community practice in marine governance. Now, and last, the government, I think, should have the political will to participate in the development of a stronger blue economic sectors. Hence, there's the need for them to carry out legal and policy reforms that would facilitate the development. Right. In conclusions, what I would like to say is that it is undeniable that the ocean and the sea have contributed significantly to humanity and ecological integrity. And the very fact is that once need to be remembered is that a blue economy is a testament of an integrated components of global communities paradigm shift and efforts towards promoting societal, what we call societal value or benefits, as well as making sure that the marine ecosystems will not be destroyed and jeopardized. So, and of course, the implementations of a sustainable blue economy requires transformations of mindset, that developing an ocean-based economy must go hand in hand with the preservation of marine ecosystems. And the fact that the discrepancy of technical capacity and wealth among global states necessitates or require the need for cooperations or at different levels and among different institutions. So basically, this is not just the role of intergovernment organizations or individual governments to participate in helping the states that in need to develop their blue economies. It also can involve so-called private-public partnerships. Hence, the role of private entities should also be taken into account when deciding to develop your own or your indigenous economic sectors. So with that, I end my presentations. Thank you very much. I hope to to receive questions from the participant from the audience. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ahmad, for the presentation. Now we have come to the last presentation from our fifth speaker. Please welcome Professor Dr. Moheryono, Doctorandus MSc. He is currently the professor for our doctorate degree program in Faculty of Social and Political Sciences in Universitas Hang Tuah, Surabaya. And he received his bachelor degree in management, Universitas Brawijaya Malang, and he got his master degree from management science in Universitas Airlangga Surabaya, and he achieved his doctorate degree from ilmu ekonomi sumber daya manusia, human resource economic science in Universitas Airlangga Surabaya. Please welcome Profesor Dr. Moheriono. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Profesor.
Waalaikumsalam, moderator.
Okay, please you may start your presentation.
Last speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, all international webinar participants, I am Moheriono, a speaker from Hang Tuah University in Indonesia. I will present the topic of global economic recovery policy after the COVID-19 pandemic. Clear?
Yes, we can see it clearly, Professor.
This topic, global economic recovery policy post-pandemic COVID-19. Economic impact of coronavirus. As we all know that many countries in the world cannot avoid the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and there is not a single country that is not affected by its economy. Therefore, in this webinar, I will explain that all countries are currently recovering their economy in 2022, but the reality is hampered by the Russia-Ukraine war, because these two countries have vital commodities that the world needs, and they control the global economy and impact mainly in Europe, Asia, and Africa. There is multiple possibility of hard landing. It is as if all countries have been thrown into double risk after experiencing in economic crisis due to COVID-19, now experiencing risk due to the Russia-Ukraine war, namely, number one, COVID-19 new outbreaks. Number two, supply bottleneck. And number three, climate-related starter. Weaker long-term growth, financial stress, and inflationary pressure. World Economic Outlook October 2021 growth projection. Please see this presentation. Number one, global economy growth projection. Advanced economies and emerging market and developing economies from 2020 all means countries will increase in 2021, then in 2022 all will fall, meaning that in 2022 all countries will grow. The economic is pessimistic because it is disturbed by the Russia-Ukraine war. Furthermore, it can be seen that all countries in this PPT explanation, including Indonesia. Let's work outlook growth projection. Have a look at this slide. United States 2.1, Euro area 1.4, Middle East and Central Asia 2.8, and Sub-Saharan Africa 3.6, and 1.8 Latin America Latin. This is late World Economic Outlook Growth projection. Big variant how economic are recovering from pandemic. Presentasi change in GDP compared with pre-pandemic level. China 7.1%, Turkey 6.8%, India 2.7%, Australia 0.8 and 0.6%, and Indonesia minus 0.8%. This is countries Asia, America, Eropa is recovering from pandemic. Economic recovery after COVID-19 not so fast. See almost all countries' economic recovery in the next 1 until 3 years, including large and small countries. Blue, red color, red. All countries impact economic. Ladies and gentlemen of the webinar participant, Russia began its invasion of Ukraine starting February 24, 2022. This was immediately responded by an increase in world oil prices to a level above $100 per barrel, the highest since 2040. The increase in world oil prices is because Russia is one of the largest countries in the world supply the world's oil needs with 10%. Economic and social impact and policy implication of the war in Ukraine. Global growth in 2023 was projected to return to rates similar to those prevailing in the immediate pre-pandemic period. Most OECD economies were expected to get back to full employment by 2023, and inflation was seen as converging on level close to policy objective. Growth later and from higher level than previously expected in most countries. Number 3, policy setting were also expected to normalize with exceptional monetary policy accommodation being progressively removed and emergency fiscal measures taken in response to the pandemic episode. Second by world. Global growth has been revised down for 2024 and 2023 due largely to the impact of the war in Ukraine. Total annual revision 2022 real GDP growth. The world had fund economies, commodity exporting, commodity importing, esteem Europe. Can you see graphic? Most impact sector in Ukraine-Russia crisis. Number 1, metal and mining, consumer packaged good, industrial good and machinery, pharmaceutical and healthcare, automotive, construction, oil and gas, technology and communication, financial services, others. Who is buying wheat from Russia and Ukraine? Russia 8.140, Ukraine 3.110. This can Indonesia 6.607 603 million US. Number one, Egypt 3.235 million. Number two, Turkey 1.587. ETC. Importing countries from Russia, Ukraine, Germany, Polandia, France, Netherlands, Italy, Denmark, Lithuania, etc. Can you see blue color Russia, red Ukraine, Indonesia, many import from Ukraine with rice, Yes. What impact did the Russia-Ukraine war have on Indonesia? Number one, with prices continue to rise because Indonesia needs 30% of Ukraine import. As a result, the prices of bread, instant noodle, and food ingredient from wheat are disturbed 50% increase in wheat prices from price in 2021. Thank you, moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Moharyono, for your presentation. Now we come to the question and answer session. I would like to please, for the audience who wants to question, who asks their question for our speakers, Mr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad and Professor Moharyono, you may type your question in the chat room, or you may raise your hand so you can ask it lively directly to the speaker. Okay, as a reminder for you, we already put the attendance list link in the chat room. You may type your attendance there, and please write down your name using capital for the first letter, and not typing it the whole name with capital letters, because sometimes people forgot to type it like with small letters, and the capital letters, they write it down all capital. Okay, hang on, we will check the question first. Okay, we have Mr. Prastata Tasha, our student from Business Administration Program. Mr. Tata? Mr. Atta? Oh, please unmute your microphone.
Yes.
Okay, you may ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Febrina Hambala, to give me the time for a question to Mr. Prof. Dr. Moharyono. For the first, I will introduce myself. My name is Professor Hassan Ahmad. You can call me Atta. I am from Business Administration, Faculty Political Science, in University of Hangzhou, Surabaya. My question is, for we know in this era, we know in another world for the Ukraine and Russia, we have some war, the real war or maybe political war. Is it affected to the global economic recovery policy? I mean, like, is that the war affected to the global economic recovery? Maybe Ms. Ambala can help me to explain about my question.
Yes.
Okay, is that clear enough, Professor
Yes.
Moharyono? The
Yes.
question?
Yes.
Mr. Atta asked about the effect of war for the global economic recovery right now.
Yes. Thank you. Any question?
Okay.
The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has an impact on the global economy, and Indonesia is no exception. This conflict has an impact on trade performance between Indonesia and the two countries. The main export commodity to the two countries is Indonesia's main commodity, namely CPO and its derivatives, where 25% of wheat flour import come from Ukraine. This paper aims to discuss how the impact of the Russia war against Ukraine for Indonesia. Yes.
Is that clear enough? Answer for you, Mr. Atta?
Yes, it's so clear. Thank you so much, Prof.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, for the next question, we have Mr. Herman here. Mr. Herman, are you here with us?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, please, you can mention your question.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, congratulations for presentation for Mr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad and also Prof. Muharyono. Mungkin maybe the questions for two of the presenter about blue economy. I love it about blue economy that we know we have already understand the presentation of Mr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad. Very interesting, I think. There are a lot of, it could be 5, but I can see that the problems, the challenge of Blue Marine is about the awareness of what do you call people love the coastal marine. Besides, we know that our marine tourism is prospective to develop a blue economy. But besides that, of course, we know that the problem is the coastal and also the coral bleachings is the problem, because there are a lot of our what do you call customer don't care, don't know the way about how to care the coastal or the coral. Maybe I want to ask to both of the presenter, especially Mr. Muhammad Zaki, how to make aware our people as customer and also as a producer about tourism, marine tourism. Thank you, moderator.
Okay, for this question, I would like to have Mr. Muhammad Zaki to answer it, please. First, please, Mr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you for the questions by Mr. or Bapak Herman. Yeah, I think part of the issues regarding coastal and marine tourism sectors is the what's so-called the degradations of these very important tourist sites, such as coral reefs, for example, or even the presence of high concentrations of plastics in the waters. Perhaps at the national level, maybe it's a high time, given the very fact for let's talk from the context of Indonesia. Indonesia is an archipelagic nation with nearly 18,000 islands, and it has so many tourist spots, beautiful beaches, and so forth. Maybe it's a high time for the Indonesian government, especially Ministry of Education, to incorporate syllabus on something that relates to the raising of maritime awareness among the school children, for example. Then the need to start from the young age is very important, especially when we want to develop a society that appreciate the natures, protect the natures and so forth. So maybe I'm not really sure whether the Indonesian education syllabus do include this kind of so-called ocean awareness or the importance of the sea and the oceans to the people and to the countries. So that's one way we can tackle that concretely, more practically. The second one, maybe the local indigenous communities. They do have awareness, understanding, or even the systems to manage their natural or surrounding resources. And we can learn a lot from them, actually, because they have the intimate knowledge and understandings about on how to protect their surrounding environments. So that's the second ways to achieve it. But to discuss about the rising of the sea levels, the impacts of global warmings, like coral bleaching, or even what else, acidifications of the oceans, it cannot be done in silo. So that means that you need to have cooperation from the global communities, to cooperate and eventually to protect our environments. So this is something that is tough to answer your question, actually, in terms of how to prevent this global warming and so forth. I mean, there's two ways for us to respond to this rising of global warmings, rising of seawaters, acidification, coral bleaching, coastal erosion. Either we go for adaptability measures or mitigation measures. Adaptability means that we pasrah, we accept the facts, right? If there is a rising seawater, we have to move our local community to a higher ground. But in sense of mitigation measures, so that means we have to fight these coastal erosions. We have to build seawalls. We have to, develop a project or whereby we will not do any land reclamations and so forth, or maybe we do land reclamations, to prevent this rising of seawaters. So in some ways, I mean, like as I already mentioned just now, at the national level, yes, on our part, maybe about educations. The second part is to incorporate some form of this local cultural management of protecting the resources. And the last one, I mean, we have to go to the international conference and inform international communities that we need to save our oceans and the sea for our young generations. So I think that's my answer to your questions, Pak Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Zaki.
You're most welcome.
Okay, for the next answer will be from our second speaker, Professor Muharyono.
Yes.
Could you please answer the question from Mr. Herman about how, what is your opinion about how to increase the awareness of people in loving the marine tourism in maritime sectors in general?
The global economy continues to be marked by rising inflation amid growth, which is predicted to be lower than previously projected. Continuing Russia-Ukraine geopolitical tension, coupled with the imposition of broader sanctions and zero COVID-19 policy on China, are holding back from repairing supply chain disruption. And tourism from countries and Indonesia impactnya sangat besar sekali ya perang. Jadi ya turisme Pak Herman tadi dampak ke turis.
Yeah, I think that the blue economy is what we call important, get benefit with, for our country. But the problem is it will break our resources. Beside that, how to make our citizens aware about, besides we get the benefit from blue economy in tourism, marine tourism, but also we have to care about the what we call the resource, natural resource, marine kind of coastal resource. What we call in the long run, it will be still there is coral reef. Is not there is what we call there is no erosion because the customer, most of them just enjoy our nature. They don't care about the our nature, break the nature. So maybe Prof. Muher have idea how to care about our nature resources. Besides, we get the blue economy from there.
Blue economy
permisi, saya terjemahkan ya Pak. Ini pertanyaannya Pak Herman itu adalah menurut Profesor bagaimana cara yang baik bagi Profesor itu untuk meningkatkan kepedulian masyarakat gitu, untuk lebih mencintai lautan. Karena kan selama ini masyarakat hanya menikmati indahnya laut gitu, tapi kemudian buang sampah sembarangan gitu kan. Mungkin ada pendekatan-pendekatan khusus yang harus dilakukan supaya laut itu terjaga, jadi tidak sembarangan, yaitu hanya sekedar berwisata di laut tapi tidak menjaga lautnya. Begitu Pak untuk terjemahannya.
Ya, memang harus ada kepedulian ya. What's the meaning of peduli? Kepedulian. Jadi memang kepedulian orang Indonesia itu sangat rendah sekali ya kalau untuk di laut ya, apalagi membuang sampah di lautan. Ya, kira-kira begitu, Bu Hambala, moderator. What's the meaning?
Oh iya, misalnya kebijakan khusus yang harus diberlakukan Pak menurut Profesor supaya lebih meningkat gitu, termasuk masyarakat itu supaya lebih mencintai produk-produk hasil laut gitu.
Saya kira hanya kepedulian aja, kepedulian sama kalau di agama Islam itu kan kebersihan adalah iman ya. Jadi itu yang masih kurang untuk orang Indonesia, itu kepeduliannya masih kurang. Saya kira itu yang perlu ditingkatkan.
Oh, okay. So Professor said that it is necessary to increase the careness from the people to our environment. Okay, because based on Al-Quran, it's also stated that cleanliness is part of our iman. It's part of our beliefs. Okay. Okay. For the next question, and I believe this will be
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah,
okay.
Pak Herman.
I hope that's clear. The answer from each speakers, Mr. Herman. The next question will be from Miss Ade Wahyuni. Miss Ade Wahyuni, are you here with us?
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Ade.
Yes.
Okay, you may ask your question, please.
Yeah. Okay. That you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yeah. Mbak Febriana.
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you, Miss.
Thank you for. Okay, thank you for the chance, and I want to ask from Muher and and Sir Muhammad Zaki Ahmad. Have turned out to be the biggest challenge for us in managing it. Not all the investor interesting to invest because there are too many problem in checking and rechecking what has been done in the sea. The problem is, it is very difficult to measure the success or the achievement in our program. So what do you think about this?
Okay, thank you, Miss Wahyuni. The first answer will be said by Mr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu. Can you please rephrase back the question because I did not hear it clearly.
Okay, the question from Miss Ade Wahyuni Azhar is that the investors they don't really care about the environment actually. So what do you think about this? I think it's from the investor perspective and the environmentalists, it's totally they have different view on this matter. So what do you what is your opinion about that?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's a tough one, but I'll try my best to answer that question. Once need to remember that businessmen, corporations, their task or the very existence of them is to make money, to make profits. Yeah, they are willing to invest if that investment can return with profits or revenues. So it is important for us to understand that not all companies, private companies, always think about making profits. And they do have so-called corporate responsibility. Corporate responsibility means that they have responsibility to the communities. So this is one of the areas that we can tap in terms of, for example, like we want to rehabilitate our coastal areas, for example. So we can call upon corporate companies, yeah, to participate in contributing maybe funds, maybe for executing the projects. And of course, the role of tax break, we call it incentive, tax incentive should be introduced to encourage more private sectors to join in and involve in this community engagement of protecting the coastal environments or even the ocean environments. So there have been known cases where large company in Malaysia, for example, like Petronas, our petroleum companies, do invest significant amount of monies on projects that relates to environments. And in return, they got that so-called tax break provided by the Malaysian government. So this is one of the ways to provide or to encourage them to participate in these so-called programs. So to say that they are focusing more on just making profits, not really actually. They do. I mean, there are certain companies, even Shell, big oil companies, involved in this kind of community engagement projects. But of course, the sideline of it is that they do also gain this so-called tax incentive for them to reimburse after they have spent some money and some fundings to these programs. So that's my answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad. And for the answer from Prof. Moheriono, Prof. Moheriono, are you still here with us?
Repeat question.
Oke, begini Pak, pertanyaan dari Ibu Ade Wahyuni Azhar ini adalah bagaimana pandangan Profesor mengenai kepentingan yang berbeda yang dimiliki investor dengan tindakan menjaga lingkungan gitu ya. Karena kan ini kegiatan-kegiatan menjaga lingkungan ini memang lebih banyak memakan biaya gitu. Dan tidak cukup menguntungkan sebenarnya. Menurut Profesor bagaimana?
Sebenarnya ya tergantung pemerintah daerah ya, pemerintah ya yang mempunyai kebijakan apa yang harus dia lakukan, karena selama ini peraturan daerah atau peraturan pemerintah itu sangat kurang ditaati oleh banyak warga negara ya. Itu yang saya tekankan di situ, peraturan daerah dan peraturan pemerintah yang kurang ditaati ya, begitu.
Okay, so Professor said that the government, the regional government needs to give a strict regulation about this, so the investor cannot do their business recklessly and putting the environment at stake. Okay, so that is the opinion from Prof. Moheriono. Is that clear to you, Ms. Adewahyuni? The answers from our both speakers? Could you please unmute your microphone, Miss?
Yeah.
Oh, you still unmuted. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, because sometimes what is Sir Jackie said that like a Petronas, the biggest investor in Malaysia, but sometimes the investor without never thinking about what is the impact to the people who lives in the land, because they given so many much money into our government like that. So the people who lives in the land near the sea can touch anything for the money that the biggest investor make a project in the sea like that, I think.
Oh, okay. So that is your opinion about that. About looking at the case from Malaysia with Petronas as the business sector.
Yeah.
Oke, Prof. Meharyono, apa ada yang mau ditambahkan, Bapak?
Cukup.
Sudah? Okay. All right. Thank you for everyone. We already come to our end of session. As a moderator, I would like to say thank you for your attendance in this webinar, and thank you very much for our distinguished speakers, for Mr. Tatit and also Mr. Professor Peter J. Mambi and Mr. Inkau from Thailand, and also the Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Zaki Ahmad, and of course from Universitas Hang Tuah, Professor Dr. Moheriono. Thank you very much for your knowledge sharing, and I'll see you all next time in other events. Okay, thank you. I'll give it back to you, to Miss MC.
Thank you to Miss Febrina Hambala as moderator.
Okay, you're welcome.
And the next one is closing statement by Mrs. Elisa Wahyuni, SPD MPD, as the secretary, and Mr. Joko Siswanto M, MSE, as the chairman.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation from the speakers. I would like to deliver the summary from this international webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Rector, Professor Dr. Insinyur Supartono MM CIQAR, and the Honorable Dean of Physics, Dr. Edi Suhardono SA MAP CIQNR, the speakers, and all of the participants. Good morning to all of you. Let me introduce my name. I am Elis Tewayuni, as the Secretary of International Webinar. Would like to deliver the summary in English. And also we have Mr. Joko Siswanto Muhartono, MSE, as the chairman of International Webinar, will be delivered the seminar in Indonesian language. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is the archipelagic country, and it has important and strategic values in maritime resources for the welfare. And one of the significant roles in this development is Marine Security Agency, or it is called Bakamla. It is located in Indonesia, and it has the task to maintain the security and build the maritime domain awareness to answer the challenges such as monitoring the sea security, creating early warning, and improving information technology for the security itself. Ladies and gentlemen, related to the marine resources, there is also another issue related to coral reef biodiversity and also the sea habitats. And one of the problems is the pollution that requires management in the protection of a fishing policy and the conservation. And of course, we should be aware the importance of fisheries and aquacultures, the role of blue economy implementation strategy in coastal area and also small islands. These are important for food security and environmental sustainability. The last, post-pandemic COVID-19 make us realize the economic impact as a big challenge and opportunity. Therefore, we are encouraged to protect, to preserve, and make use of maritime resources wisely for the people welfare and the security, of course. This is the summary from the topic related to International Webinar, Maritime Development, Challenges and Opportunities. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, Ms. Ellie, I continue for Indonesia challenge. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang terhormat Rektor Profesor
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Supartono Master Science CIQR, Dr. Edi Suhartono SEMAP CIQNR, pembicara dan seluruh peserta yang saya hormati. Selamat siang, izinkan saya memperkenalkan diri. Saya Dr. Joko Siswanto Muhartono, Magister Sains, sebagai Ketua Internasional Webinar akan menyampaikan rangkuman dalam bahasa Indonesia. Hadirin yang terhormat, Indonesia sebagai negara kepulauan memiliki nilai penting dan strategis dalam sumber daya kelautan untuk kesejahteraan masyarakat. Salah satu peran penting dalam pembangunan ini adalah Badan Keamanan Laut atau Bakamla, yang memiliki tugas untuk menjaga keamanan dan membangun kesadaran domain maritim untuk menjawab tantangan seperti memantau keamanan laut, membuat peringatan dini, dan meningkatkan teknologi informasi untuk keamanan laut. Terkait sumber daya laut, ada isu lain yang harus dilindungi, yaitu keanekaragaman hayati terumbu, karang, dan habitat laut. Salah satu permasalahannya adalah pencemaran yang memerlukan pengelolaan dalam perlindungan, kebijakan penangkapan berlebih, dan konservasi. Masyarakat seharusnya menyadari pentingnya perikanan dan budidaya laut. Peran strategi implementasi ekonomi biru di wilayah pesisir dan serta pulau-pulau kecil. Hal ini penting untuk ketahanan pangan dan kelestarian lingkungan. termasuk pasca pandemi COVID-19 yang menyadarkan kita akan dampak ekonomi sebagai tantangan dan peluang besar. Oleh karena itu, kita terdorong untuk menjaga, melestarikan, dan memanfaatkan sumber daya maritim secara bijak untuk kesejahteraan rakyat dan keamanan. Demikian rangkuman dari topik terkait pembangunan maritim, tantangan dan peluang. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks back.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Finally, we get to the last session, which is its closing. Let's close this event by saying Hamdalah.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Speakers, the committee, and the audience entirely. May what we had conducted will be useful for us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your active participation today and have a great rest of your day. I am Almira Aurelia Dianti.
I am Devira Triska Aprilia Putri.
Signing off. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for participation.
Waalaikumsalam.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Terima kasih semuanya. Salam sukses, sehat.
Terima kasih Pak Tatit. Terima kasih Pak Tatit.
Sukses selalu, sukses selalu.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Edi Wijanto.
Terima kasih Bu. Ya.
Semuanya terima kasih.
Jinlep.
Terima kasih Jinlep. Saya Jinlep.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Jinlep.
Terima kasih Pak Rektor.
Terima kasih Bapak, Ibu-ibu. Insyaallah.
Terima kasih Dr. Zaki. See you next event. Ya.
Pak Joko, makasih Pak Joko. Prof Muryono.
Terima kasih.
Thanks for all.
Terima kasih, Mr. Jaki.
Oh, makasih. Sukses Pak Joko.
Surabaya is the largest metropolitan city in the province of East Java, and University Surabaya has a mission, organizing professional education and teaching in the field of social and political sciences based on maritime science and technology, improving analytical skills through research in the field of social and political sciences that is creative, innovative, and educational, organizing community service, increase cooperation with various domestic and foreign institutions. The Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Hang Tuah University Surabaya has 3 levels of education, namely Bachelor of Public Administration with Accreditation A and Business Administration with Accreditation B, Master of Public Administration with Accreditation B, and Doctor of Public Administration. In this case, the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences Hang Tuah University Surabaya prepares the best graduates who are included in the scope of state needs according to the field of graduation. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya has facilities including air-conditioned classroom, faculty and university libraries, Public Policy and Management Laboratory, meeting room, multimedia room, and corner music studio. There are many achievements that have been achieved both at the regional, national, and international levels, including National Student Exchange at UNTAC Surabaya and Dr. Sutomo University Surabaya, International Exchange Students at the Lyceum of the Philippine University. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya prepares graduates who have comprehensive expertise in scientific insight into public administration, analysis and research, skill management, and as well as a share in democracy and humanity. FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya also improves the quality of the implementation of the three dharma of higher education by prioritizing the basic scientific pattern of marine science and technology. Many alumni work with partners. Currently, the partner of FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya.
Menurut saya, kualitas pendidikan di FISIP sudah sangat baik, didukung oleh tenaga pendidik yang berpengalaman, kompeten, dan profesional di bidangnya. Tak hanya itu, Fakultas Ilmu Sosial dan Ilmu Politik Universitas Hang Tuah Surabaya juga memiliki lingkungan dan fasilitas yang sangat mendukung dalam proses perkuliahan.
Harapan saya setelah lulus kuliah, sesuai dengan jurusan saya yaitu bisnis, saat ini saya sedang mengembangkan bisnis di bidang properti dan juga body care, yaitu transit. Harapan saya ke depannya, usaha saya dapat lancar dan juga dapat membuka lapangan pekerjaan bagi banyak orang.
FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah adalah kampus terbaik dan bisa membantu mahasiswa untuk mewujudkan impian. FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah juga banyak membimbing, khususnya bagi mahasiswa yang kuliah sambil bekerja sambil melaksanakan kedinasan. Harapan saya setelah lulus dari FISIP Universitas Hang Tuah, saya mampu mengimplementasikan ilmu yang saya dapat di kampus di dalam kehidupan bermasyarakat dan juga mendukung dalam kedinasan saya sebagai prajurit Korps Marinir TNI Angkatan Darat.
FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya will continue to develop into an educational institution with a national and international reputation in the field of public administration. Cooperation continues to be built to develop science and market share of graduates. There are so many solutions prepared for students. So, are you ready to become a new generation and be able to contribute in the real time? Let's join FISIP Hang Tuah University Surabaya. FISIP Hang Tuah Gateway to Global Competition.